Good evening. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter. Thank you for joining us on In Time. The protests, which by now the whole world has heard of, has in fact gone international. It is no longer limited to the now 40 cities in the United States, with 15 states deploying National Guard to try to control the protests and/or riots. They have now gone into Germany and Britain. In both cases, the protests are protesting Americans and our response to the George Floyd incident. The protests have been outside the U.S. Embassy in Germany, with hundreds more also gathering in London. There's been a number of very interesting reactions. Last night we showed you the chief of the Houston Police Department, who had actually, while still in uniform, decided to join with the protesters and walk through the protest with them. Many police officers, in fact, are now starting to join the protesters. They are carrying signs. They are taking a knee with protesters in solidarity behind them. We've discussed this earlier. I think we will be discussing this tonight, that there are bad apples. Chris Rock had made a joke, I think, that you're not allowed to have bad apples in the police department. It's sort of like having bad apples at Delta Airlines, saying that there are bad pilots. Well, most of our pilots land the plane successfully, but nonetheless, there are bad apples, and all police officers, well, not all, but certainly the vast majority of police officers don't like the bad apples very much more than we do. Nonetheless, there have been police officers holding signs in protest of police officers, and here is one right now that we have up for you. These are the officers across the country, but certainly in New York, in Atlanta, and in DC, that appear to be showing solidarity with the protesters. In New York alone, over 40 police vehicles have been damaged or destroyed, 33 officers injured, and 340 people arrested, all in the last 24 hours. Tear gas has been deployed in multiple states, including Washington, D.C., and in cities from New York to Santa Monica to Long Beach. Meanwhile, while there are certainly police officers who have been showing solidarity with the protesters, many more have been getting more brutal as we enter the fourth or fifth, depending on how you choose to define it, day of these protests. Police officers have been seen entering rural neighborhoods where there is no protesting and throwing tear gas and paint canisters at residents, in some cases residents who have been on their porches or on their own property who have reported being assaulted. We will have footage of some of that in a few minutes. We've heard also of officers who have been beating or firing on nurses and EMTs while they are tending to the wounded and/or in makeshift medical tents. We have some more footage of that. We also we'll have footage of a man who was being treated by an EMT beside a car. The EMT was attacked and in the process of being cuffed was maced. He repeatedly identified himself as a medic, but was nonetheless beaten and eventually arrested. We also have footage of a journalist who identified himself as a journalist, was approached by the police, thrown to the ground, and while on the ground, and while at least one officer on top of him and another in front of him, was also maced. He was incapable of defending himself, and his credentials were at that point in the hands of a police officer. 2 Atlanta police officers have been fired, and 2 more are under investigation when, after pulling over a black man who was wanted on a warrant and arresting him, he was dragged out into the street. He had both his hands behind him. He was in the process of being arrested by one police officer when another one, about 10 feet behind, ran up at full speed, jump kicked this man in the back. He flew forward. The other officer either seemed to see this as an assault or I don't know, but then engaged that man. They threw him to the ground. They jumped on top of him and then proceeded to attempt to arrest him and his wife or girlfriend, who was recording all of this. 2 Atlanta police officers, the 2 involved, have been arrested, and I believe we have that footage coming up shortly, and we'll discuss it when we see it. And we'll discuss all of this footage. A lot of it there is volume for most of this, but right now we're keeping it low so that you can hear. The man and the woman were taken into custody. We'll have that video shortly. We also have video of a truck driver who ran through a crowd in Minneapolis. There was another truck driver who overrun several protesters. One was caught under the wheel of the truck. In one case, the protesters were able to catch up to the truck driver. They pulled him out and started beating him. The police showed up. He was taken to the hospital where he is in recovery, and in the meantime was also arrested. Now, this is a picture of bricks. There have been, and we spoke about this briefly yesterday, but this is starting to become a thing. There have been piles of bricks that have been appearing. It is definitely very suspicious. I don't know what those bricks are doing there. There are, at this point, there's enough evidence that I think we can deduce that there are outside organizations that are meddling with this. CNN reports that of the 73 people arrested in Minnesota, all but 8 of them were from out of state. And so there's, yeah, there is definitely some organization. There appears to be people on both sides that are meddling with this. We'll get into it in a minute. There are other cases of reporters being attacked. Just days ago, we showed a couple of instances where reporters were attacked. At one point, we showed video of a local news reporter in Minneapolis who was in the process of reporting. There were no protesters anywhere near her. There were cameras, there were lights. It was obviously a professional production nonetheless. As officers were engaging protesters on one side, one officer turned, levied his automatic paint gun or pepper gun at her and fired repeatedly at her and then fired at the camera. We have a few more instances today. Reporter Ali Vashi and his crew from CNN were engaged by the police. We will show footage of that as well. They were standing really in the middle of the road where they had been told they were cleared to stand. Several officers turned, faced them, and deployed. This is also a press officer here who is being shot at with what appears to be rubber bullets. He clearly has a press vest on with it's a bulletproof vest, but he was nonetheless fired upon. Ali Vashi was fired upon, he and his crew from CNN. Multiple tear gas canisters deployed directly upon them. They had to retreat. Mike George's CBS crew also came under fire. In fact, I think that's actually, no, this, what you just saw is, I believe, Vice reporter Michael Adams being attacked. He identified himself as pressed. Oh, okay, apology. Michael Adams, you'll see in a minute, identified himself as pressed, handed over his credentials, was nonetheless thrown to the ground, and then while on the ground, as other officers were talking to him, he was pepper sprayed. Linda Torreno last night, and we reported this as it happened. There was some confusion about whether it was a tracer round or what kind of round it was. It appears at this point it was a rubber bullet, but it shattered her. She was wearing protective glasses. They shattered. She has now lost her left eye. Doctors were unable to repair the damage. Several other people have lost eyes. It appears as if there's been accusations that the police have been targeting the head. This is another incident in New York of bricks that just appeared out of nowhere. The claim is, and I think this is gaining in credibility, that people have been trying to, and I don't think it's the police. I don't think it's the police who are trying to increase the riots, but clearly somebody has been laying bricks at various places. Meanwhile, random attacks have also increased. In some cases, vehicles have been plowing into crowds of protesters. Other cases, people have come out with knives, swords, bows, and guns. We showed yesterday a man with a compound bow with what appeared to be broadhead arrows, who was just started firing at as many people as he could in the crowd before he was attacked. People have been coming out with swords and with knives and have been subdued by large crowds. In one case, there appeared to be a report of a businessman who was attacked and killed. But upon review of, and it's a unique age now where everybody has a recording studio in their pocket. This is the police striking several, just plowing right into a large group of protesters. Everybody's got a camera, and so a local news crew reported that a shopkeeper had died while defending his shop, but there was footage of the 5 minutes prior to that where he came out with a knife and started attacking people. I think this footage here is of Vice reporter Michael Adams, who is at this point about to be engaged. He is actually seeking shelter right now from and he is tackled, and then he will be maced directly in the face. Yes, this is him. So they are approaching him. He is a reporter. They are instructing him to get down. He is going to hand over his press credentials, which you can see this officer has in his left hand, the press credentials. He said, "I am pressed." They said, "I don't care. Get down, get down." There they are holding his press credentials. They are reading his press credentials, and you are about to see a spray come over his face as he lays down. There's an officer talking to him right now. The other officer appears to have been hit. There's the spray. It appears like it may have also gotten that officer. This is a man who was speaking with an officer. He was on the ground with at least one officer pinning him down and another officer talking to him, and with valid press credentials, and he was maced. And apparently the attack that forced him down was described as brutal. I don't think we've actually, you could see at least part of it. Right now, we have curfews in almost 40 cities in the United States of America, and all 10 million residents of Los Angeles County have been told to stay at home and are under curfew. Most in all the big cities are being ignored. Los Angeles County is being ignored. There appears to be right now in D.C. a large crowd in Lafayette Park, which is just down the way from the White House. We're learning, too, that Donald Trump, who said that on Friday he was never in any danger and nobody moved him and there was no issue during the lockdown, we are learning that, in fact, a code red was issued, and he and all the protectorates, that includes his family, were moved into a bunker on the assumption that the White House had been or was about to be breached. So this contradicts the statements that he made on Twitter. The National Guard deployments have nearly doubled, going from 8 states to 15 states. Minnesota has deployed 5,000 National Guard soldiers in what Governor Walz is declaring as, quote, the most complex public safety operation in the history of our state. We are learning, too, the nation has reported that the U.S. military is currently engaged in what could best be described as intelligence operations against at least 7 states in the Union, watching these riots. Now, that appears to be in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act, which was passed in 1878. This prohibits the deployment of the Army and Air Force inside the United States without prior consent from the U.S. Congress for any form of law enforcement operations. Interestingly enough, the National Guard is exempt, and the National Guard is exempt because the National Guard is actually a state organization. So unless the National Guard is federalized, they're state organizations. That's why they can be deployed. This is a child who was pepper sprayed, by the way, right here. You can see a police officer went up and pepper sprayed the child. The child was not doing anything. The police officer just came up, poof, pepper spray to the face, did not pepper spray the parents or anyone else nearby, just pepper sprayed the child. That is what you're watching right now. The U.S. Space Force is also exempt from the Posse Comitatus Act, so if Donald Trump wants to deploy the Space Force locally, I guess he probably can. But there are a number of reasons for this. We will probably get into them, but nonetheless, it would appear that intelligence operations in the U.S. by the any of the armed forces, and the Coast Guard is also exempt, but they have been traditionally thought of as being included. They're just technically exempt, but most people, all presidents thus far, have considered them included. Nonetheless, It appears there is some intelligence, and the nation has covered that, and we will try to get into that. Quote, from and after the passage of this act, it shall not be lawful to employ any part of the Army of the United States as posse comitatus, which is to say they cannot be pressed into any form of police action. They cannot be pressed into any sort of policing duties of any kind or otherwise for the purpose of executing laws, except in such case and under such circumstances as such employment of said force may be explicitly authorized by the Congress, by the Constitution or by act of Congress. Most of these, all of these are, I believe, from the last 24 hours, unless something slipped in. We're trying to keep all our footage here separate, but most of this is from the last 24 hours. Some of these are from last night. This is a shopkeeper who was reported to have been killed by a mob, and it was discovered by review of footage earlier that in fact he had gone out and apparently attacked the mob. We also have some footage of a number of protesters actually defending stores against the mob. So we're seeing, I think, sort of the worst and best of the United States. There is a warning, and I'd hope to, the best we've got is the written warning on the title. We don't have one on the screen yet, but there will be some graphic images. The most graphic we have actually pulled out, including some graphic images of people being run over, bystanders being run over by a truck and being stuck under the wheel of a truck as it moves forward. We have a lot more on the breaking news section of the In Time Discord. This is there was a female protester who came out with her hands up in front of the police. She appeared to come under fire from multiple police officers with rubber bullets. She had to be taken away. We also have footage of children being attacked. In one case, it appears a 12-year-old child was in fact targeted and hit in the head. And we have, as you've seen earlier, a child who was pepper sprayed in the face. We're going to go over this and a few of the other things, but just as a reminder of the numbers, we now have almost 40 U.S. cities under curfew. In the largest cities, most of those curfews are being ignored. This man you can see the knee to the neck here. This is a similar move as to what happened in the Floyd situation, which currently the autopsy report, the preliminary report is saying did not kill him. But nonetheless, you can see the exact same move of a knee to the neck being done in this arrest here. This man in the orange that's being taken away apparently did not do, if he did anything, nobody knows. So I will be covering more of what was in the footage. We now have deployments of National Guard in 15 states. We have New York has said that they will not deploy National Guard and they will not enact a curfew. That is the mayor of New York explicitly stating that. So I know that there's been some activity in the live chat, and I would like to get to it, but obviously there is just a great deal going on. And as I've said before now, in other countries, the protests in support of George Floyd and in support of the American protesters have been growing. This is now an international affair. There is evidence that, he's using the Insurrection Act. Oh, that's right. Joy. There is evidence that there are people on sort of both sides that have been trying to fan the flames of this. Trump has said that most of this is being done by Antifa. Now, there is no evidence to support that. There is evidence that there is some moving of outside groups in some organization, but most of the organization appears to be at the local level. There have been reports of when there's looting, trucks just showing up rapidly, grabbing stuff and leaving. People have been listening to police scanners. It also appears that Anonymous has gotten involved. Anonymous appears to have hacked a number of police radios and started playing music, fuck the cops, all this other over the police radios, debilitating the internal communications of police officers. Meanwhile, as I've said, the police bans must necessarily be public, so anybody can listen to any police band radio. That's often what news organizations will do. They'll be listening to the police band radio so that if there's a shooting, if there's an arrest, sometimes if they're mobile, they can show up before the police do because they can hear it on the police band radios. Well, at any rate, it appears there are local organizations that have been listening to the police radios. They show up with a pickup truck, load up everything from the Kmart, Target, whatever, and bail. But there's no evidence of a national Antifa organized. It looks like they're not even capable of mobilizing like this. Nonetheless, Trump has said that he will declare Antifa as a terrorist organization. Now, we have a list of international terrorist organizations. This list is used to dry up funding for these organizations and to make it so that we can work with other countries to stop these organizations. Anybody put on this terrorist watch list. Now, this is a child. He's been hit in the head with a rubber bullet and is unconscious and bleeding badly. The status of that child, unfortunately, we do not know. He does appear conscious there. The terrorist organization, the list of international... Okay, this is important. This is one we showed earlier. This is a domestic neighborhood. This is being recorded by a woman who is on her front porch. She is on her property. This is a group of police officers. There is no violence in the area. They're coming down. When officers see her, multiple officers, you can see them engaging now. You can see the fire. They're being fired upon by paint and gas by multiple officers. They were standing on their property. Again, this is a residential neighborhood. There had been there was nothing in the area. Antifa, the declaring of Antifa as a terrorist organization appears to be, the problem with it is, in order to declare them a terrorist organization, they have to be an international organization. It has to be declaring them terrorist organizations from foreign states. The reason this is done is so that you can target their money, you can dry up their bank accounts, and any state that does not comply, we can embargo, and we don't have to do business with or trade with. The problem is that Antifa doesn't work outside the U.S., so any such declaration would be meaningless and unenforceable. Further, Antifa, actually, the many of the basic views of Antifa are actually held by a huge percentage of the U.S. population. The views of, say, the White Nationalist Party are not, and white nationalists have not been declared terrorists. So why they, who have done many of the things here, especially starting in Charlottesville, if you go back to they're not a terrorist organization, and yet, nonetheless, there's no evidence that this is actually organized by Antifa, and we don't know. So I do apologize. I've been going on now for about 15 or 20 minutes to try to get everyone up to date. I think now you can see sort of what we're talking about and what's been going on. It really is extraordinary. Again, if you would like to learn more and see what's going on and some of the images that I think we're just not going to show, we're going to show a lot, and you're going to see graphic images here. You're going to see some pretty graphic images here, but I think some of the ones we're going to not show. We do have on our Discord, we have a breaking news section, or just a news update section. You're going to see a lot of this footage. You're going to see other footage in that section. Anybody who would like to see more of what's going on across the United States tonight can see it on our Discord and can continue the discussion. These are police officers pulling people out of cars. The cars, there's nobody engaged in any activity that was reported here. Certainly there's none. Here they are breaking the window now of one car and pulling people out. This is while traffic is moving. It looks like they're trying to get away. This is, of course, antagonizing the officers even more, and they're now swarming in on this car and slashing the tires. There are reports of police officers slashing multiple tires and immobilizing cars, in some cases in parking lots, in other cases parked cars where people can't even move the cars now to get out of the way. Okay, so they've just broken this window, and they are pulling these people out of the car. I am ashamed to admit that this is my country. I will drop that as I go. So like I said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cover some of the things. I think people have been watching this for quite some time, and a warning again: there's going to be some explicit images that already have been, including of children being very badly injured. This was a medic. You can see he's got a Red Cross helmet on. He was a medic. He was treating someone. We covered this earlier too and said that you'd be seeing the footage. He was in the process of treating someone. He received several baton blows about the body and apparently across the head. He did have a metallic Red Cross helmet on. He repeatedly identified himself as a medic. If you can hear the audio, I hope if somebody in the live chat can tell me if the audio is sufficient. This was a horse that was horse napped, I guess, a police horse. A rioter did snag a police horse and started running through the town with it. We have had reports of trampling and other stuff, but this is actually taken not by a police officer, but one of the. Okay, that was, if you just saw that footage, that was a police officer going up. The man had his hands cuffed behind his back. Police officer went up and kicked him in the chest and or head. With extraordinary force, throwing him back. He was cuffed. He was sitting cross-legged. This is a sheriff who decided to join the protesters in solidarity, and you can see sort of what happens here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it go silent for a minute. In fact, actually, I think I'm going to increase the volume slightly so you can all hear it. And I am going to read the live chat and just take stock of what people have been saying and how we're going. And then we're going to do sort of a basic rundown both of the show and what we see going across the United States of America tonight. So without further ado, I will be muting, and this is the audio you're seeing now, and a warning: some of this could get explicit without any advanced warning, so please be prepared.
Sheriff Chris Watson, sorry. Go! Genesee County Sheriff. They're gonna walk with us. They're gonna walk with us. They're gonna walk with us. They're gonna walk with us.
All right, so there's a few things. I'm being told from the live chat that thousands are forming on Broadway, which is one of Portland's main streets, and that the cops are already using tear gas, so we can add Portland to the list of places. Burnside Street. The kneeling on one knee is interesting. It appears some have been using it for police officers for solidarity with police. Others have been using it for solidarity with the protesters. For those who think it's okay for people who are using it for solidarity with police, I will say I find it interesting because I've seen we've been watching social media, and I've seen some people say, hey, great, some people are kneeling to show solidarity with the police. I find it interesting that when somebody kneels at a football game during the national anthem because they're a member of a minority that could be killed at any time for being drunk in public or just fiddling with the keys at his front door, that's considered unpatriotic and somehow so bad that we have to consider stopping the entire football season. But when people do it with police officers, some of whom have clearly been violating the law and violating people's rights, well, then it's a positive. Yeah. Tony Designs has said this, and just if you haven't seen the video yet, of course, if you can hear me, I guess you can hear it, but you have to accept the explicit warning. This is going to be an explicit broadcast. There's really nothing we can do about it. At this point, we can't accurately report on the severity of what's going on without showing some unpleasant things. It's all going to be in the front window. If it troubles you, just switch to audio only. No, I believe I still have this. Oh, the sound is, yeah. I think that's the Ohio State House, if I recall correctly. This was a Trump tweet where Mr. Trump said that he praised the National Guard but blamed the governor of Minneapolis, the governor of Minnesota, for failure to act. But thank God the National Guard was there. The National Guard was there because he was acting. That's what he did. As I said before, Trump said that he was never in any danger and that they never had to move him. We've learned now that that is not true. He was put in Code Red, which is the highest condition at the White House that the Secret Service can enact. He was immediately moved to a underground bunker, as were all the other people under immediate service, Secret Service protection, which would be every immediate member of his family. Yes, this is, and then the other thing is we actually have at least one Confederate statue has been torn down. So it looks like yeah, there's been some soul searching in regards to how much of this we're going to show. We're all adults here, and life is ugly sometimes, and we are in the process of something ugly. If we are going to do the honest reporting that we say we do here, then that means we show all of it. We are trying to show examples of remarkable acts of police and
right
protesters.
Yeah,
and we are trying to show the terrible to give as balanced of view as we can.
Y'all know what building this is right here. I ain't even gonna say what name it is.
Hey, where do them bricks go to? Where do them bricks go to? Where do them bricks
We gotta do better.
Ain't no damn
We gotta
construction.
do better.
Ain't no damn construction around here.
I see.
Ain't no damn construction around here. You just gonna set a pallet of bricks right there. Oh, okay.
Listen.
So what he's saying here is that this was a setup from the cops. Again, we see no evidence of that, but there have been what appears to be bricks laid out at multiple places across the country, ostensibly to help stir things up. I will say this, and I've gotten in some trouble for saying this. I think it's very difficult for even good cops to say things. I had a friend of mine who was a mental health worker at a maximum security, Supermax actually, facility in a Walpole Supermax facility in Massachusetts. Those are more piles of bricks. What are they doing? There's no need for those bricks. I have no idea. There's no construction. There's no okay. A lot of glass around though, but at any rate, I'm sure those cones will keep people away, so that's good. He was a mental health worker at Walpole Supermax facility in Massachusetts, now known as Cedar Junction. He reported several officers who had done things that endangered the lives of other officers, but the unwritten code there was that you don't turn in other officers because they're the only ones that have your back. And he was given a lesson in that code when one day walking down the tiers on the second floor, he realized there were no guards around him, and then all of a sudden a cell door with one of the most vicious murderers they've got, this huge, 400-pound man who was convicted of killing 7 people. The cell door just swung open. The guy was in there watching Jerry Springer. The guy just saunters out, looks at my friend who is alone in the tier. It had been opened, the door had been opened remotely from the control room. And the guy just looks him up and down and says, "Hey, you got any cigarettes?" Says, "Nope, sorry." Goes, okay, thanks, and saunters back into his cell. I think there is significant pressure. This is a police officer again. He is clearly wearing a press bulletproof vest, and he is currently being hit by rubber bullets. He is now shouting and identifying himself as press, and he continues to get shot at. Okay, we have a purple rhymes with orange, and I apologize. I know I'm like 10 or 15 minutes behind the live chat, but we've been covering a lot. So the officers that were with Floyd, all 4 officers, including the one who was observing, have been fired from the police department. Whether any others are going to be charged with anything, nobody knows. But as of this moment, the officer that had his knee on Floyd has been charged with both manslaughter and murder 3, of which after having seen that footage by Mr. Nate Brody, who is a former police officer, former prosecutor, and current attorney, who did a video on those charges. I understand better why both, although it's very hard. There's a subtle difference between murder 3 and manslaughter, but nonetheless. Anyways, he's been charged with both. I'm going to up the volume on this so you guys can hear it a bit better, and then I'm going to continue reading the live chat.
They gonna set them hoes right up on the rail.
Y'all know what building this is right here. I ain't even gonna say what name it is.
Hey, where do them bricks go to? Where do them bricks go to? Where do them bricks go to?
We gotta do better.
Ain't no damn construction.
Gotta do better.
Ain't no damn construction around here.
I see.
Ain't no damn construction around here. You just gonna set a pallet of bricks right there. Oh, okay.
Listen, I did jury duty 3 months ago. Y'all don't keep no bricks right there. Do better.
G, the street across the street is on fire, G. The whole 2 trees over there, G. This bitch is finna blow.
All right, so we'll I'll cover what a few more of these are as we see them. I have some more footage. I will bring up just sort of individually as opposed to these clips. But there have been here are the police ramming into protesters, quite a number of them. And there's some more footage, I think, coming up of a few more incidents similar to that. The incident of the 4 police officers, 2 who have been arrested, 2 who've been suspended, or 2 have been fired, 2 are being investigated. Where again there was, and this is again this is footage from a reporter who has a press identification. You'll see him give it up. He is thrown to the ground and pepper sprayed while on the ground. You will see that happen presently. I think, I'm sorry, I believe I was answering a question, but yes, I know what he said about riots, but what Martin Luther King said about riots has to be taken in the full context. If you read that was from an interview he gave with Walter Cronkite, and what he said about riots taken out of context sounds like he was for them. He was not. And if you see the entire interview with Walter Cronkite, or actually it might have been Mike Wallace. I think it was with Walter Cronkite, but if it wasn't Cronkite, it was Mike Wallace. Of 60 Minutes. Okay, you can see he's about to get pepper sprayed. We can talk about what Martin Luther King said about riots, but it wasn't quite, I think, what you may think it was. At any rate, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So why now? I think there's a lot of conditions. This has been getting worse and worse in this country. People have been getting more and more upset, and you now have a lot of people who are unemployed, nothing better to do, nothing to lose. They have gotten their awesome stipend from the U.S. or just a one-time payment for, their economic stimulus, and they are now without a job in many cases, kind of afraid to go out, but also dying to go out. I think everybody's got this kind of mix of, okay, this is a press pass that you can see he's holding. So, and people are frustrated, and you take all of that and take genuine resentment against a great many police officers. Oh, I've been talking about why police officers protect each other, and I think there is an under siege mentality, and I think that makes it difficult for good officers, and good officers who do turn in other officers end up finding ways of being left alone. In fact, actually, there was an officer who told, yeah, had been left alone with a pretty dangerous suspect, unable to get any backup because, all of a sudden, backup's not available for the officer who turns in other officers. I think it's a difficult situation.
Some random ass bricks, bro. Ain't no construction. Ain't no construction, bro.
I do apologize. The way this video is loaded, we can't rewind it, but it will go through again. This is a loop of videos. Okay, you can see here that truck. That is a tanker that is plowing into the crowd, and I believe it will start moving again. A lot of people have stopped it. In that one, no one was injured. There was another tanker incident where at least one person appears to have been killed and was certainly caught under the wheel. That one is currently on our Discord. Again, on our Discord, and I'm going to start checking the Discord. I haven't checked the Discord. I'll do a very brief rundown of, I think, sort of where we are. Again, this is now almost 40 cities in the U.S. are under curfew. New York, notably an exception, where the governor has said I think it was the mayor of New York City. I don't know about the state, but in New York City, at a minimum, no curfew, and they will not be deploying the National Guard. This man was hit by what are rubber bullets. Clearly, the damage isn't what you'd expect from a real bullet. This is a little girl. She was, I believe, 8 years old, and she was simply pepper sprayed directly in the face by what was purported to be a police officer. We can't confirm that. Somebody carrying pepper spray did appear to. Okay, so we have a report that police officers have been blocking out their badges. I had not heard that. If that's the case, that is obviously a very big problem. All right, so that video that you just saw was a man who drove a tanker truck in, his name was Bogdan Vachiro. He drove a tanker truck into a crowd of protesters in a Minnesota interstate. He has now been charged with assault. He was dragged out and beaten. He is only minor injuries to the nose and eye, and he is now in jail without bail. St. John's Church in Washington has been set on fire. It has been extinguished, but we also have heard that a number of other monuments have been attacked and or defaced, and including also some buildings. I know the Treasury Department had been damaged 2 nights ago, and there was another federal building that's been hit today, but I don't know which. I will get to it in a minute. Boston has had protests, but they have all been peaceful. There's been no rioting in Boston. Cleveland has had rioting and the deployment of gas. In Cleveland, they have extended their curfew at least through Tuesday while they wait and try to get this under control. D.C., there are fires and gas deployed. Also, and there is a crowd near the White House and fires burning near the White House. Don't know where. Last night, certainly there were fires on Pennsylvania Avenue and 7th. The National Guard has been deployed in 15 states and in D.C. And Tennessee has deployed the National Guard and what appears to be at least 500 National Guard troops to Murfreesboro. So that's where we stand. Bill de Blasio's daughter was actually arrested for unlawful assembly. We've had a number of members of Congress who have now been arrested, including one member of Congress who was also peppered sprayed in the face as she was standing with crowds. This, what you see here, is one woman who is coming out, and she's being fired upon by multiple officers. She was holding up signs and asking them to stop as she gets injured, and actually I think there were 3 women there. One of them loses the ability to walk. They pick her up and take her out of the line of fire. Mr. Designs is correct too. Antifa isn't. It's almost like the Tea Party. The Tea Party is in sort of a legal sense, it's a class. It's not a group. It's not, people don't join or leave. They just have a set of ideologies, and then ostensibly it's this nebulous thing. Antifa isn't. You can't ban Antifa because it's not. Yeah. Aside from the fact it's also not an international organization. So. And Antifa stands for anti-fascist. So Mr. Designs has brought up another interesting point here, which is 90% of Americans are willing to say they don't like Nazis. That's one of the principal. I mean, it's an anti-fascist organization. So if you're against fascism, ostensibly you share at least some goals and values of Antifa. Now the next question is, how many goals do you share with white nationalists? As opposed to a white nationalist, we can get into the difference between a white nationalist and a white supremacist. There are actually different things, dear Lord. So, all right, I think what we have coming up, you will see, I think one of the next clips is a man. He is tied. His hands are tied behind his back. He is sitting cross-legged, and an officer runs up and kicks him either in the chest or the head. I can't tell, it happens too quickly, and he's flung back. I do apologize. We might be actually if people are interested, I can probably slow down the pace of this video, but what I cannot do is control. I don't have fine-tune control, so I cannot pause it, and I cannot. All I can do is restart it from the beginning. I do apologize.
You guys have never done this before. You have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea what you're doing.
And again, anybody who wants to continue any of these discussions, and so it's midnight now, Eastern Standard. We're going to keep an eye on what's going on. One of the things that interests me the most, again, one of the things that interests me most is what's happening in Washington, D.C. And the reason is because Trump places a lot of value on symbolism and on people believing that he is a man of power. There appears to be a huge divide between his advisors on how he should respond to this. One set of advisors are saying that he has to come out and he has to express solidarity with people who are seeking change, solidarity with people who say that this was a terrible thing, and to say that he empathizes and he wants to see things fixed, and that's what he needs to do. And there's another group of advisors who are saying that he needs to come out hard and strong to quell this. I have to say, my personal feelings aside, that would be a phenomenally poor idea, and I think a very significant misjudging of the situation and of the level of anger and resentment that is boiling over here, and the fact that it is starting to get international. No, I think there are other ways. I think that's a very poor idea. Yeah, Mr. Trump does. So there is a not often touted or accepted rule of business that says that actually you want to get the people in your business to be fighting with each other, and that this this is a child. I think we saw this, and you can see there's a good deal of blood. He's been hit in the head with a rubber bullet, and it appears to have caused some significant damage. He is clearly conscious, but he is quite badly injured. This, again, I'm going to repeat what this is. This is a residential neighborhood, I believe, in Minnesota. What you're going to see here is this is a couple of people who are watching the police. And I mean, if I saw police like this, I'd be watching too. And the police you can see they're firing. You could see the flash of the muzzle as they fired, or what appeared to be both gas and paint. You could see green paint splattering around, and one person hit with the paint. And they retreated indoors, but they were on the porch of their own home, watching police going down a residential neighborhood where there was no rioting, and the police just opened fired. Excuse me. Again, not with conventional munitions, just FYI. I mean, it clearly wasn't bullets, but now I believe I haven't seen in this batch the footage of the CNN crew, reporter Ali Vashi, who and that's quite a sight. He was just standing there, and all of a sudden tear gas canisters start going off left and right all around him, and it's clear he is being okay. I believe that is a okay. That's a photographer and a photojournalist for the National Review. Oh no, just sorry, the Review Journal, and then the assault on the press, in my view, is particularly shocking. Freedom of the press is the first amendment to the Constitution, and there is a reason for that. We do have a regular series on civics, and we will be covering the first Constitution. We've already covered a bit about we've covered the Constitution already. There they are kicking one person who is he was seated. I believe he looks like he was cuffed. He certainly doesn't appear. No, he's not cuffed, but he was seated and he was kicked. And you will see in a few minutes a man who was cuffed, both his arms behind his back, and he is okay. These are bottles of vodka being stolen from a P.F. Chang's. These are police pulling, and there were no protesters here that I can see. Of course, we don't know what's behind the camera, but nobody in this car was doing anything, and they pull these people out of the car.
Guys, come to me right now. Come to me right now.
All right, so we have someone called News says the movement is obviously international. The Antifa is international. Great. I'm thrilled to hear it. I love breaking new news. If you can demonstrate that to us in any meaningful way, we have a Discord again. Put it in there, and we will review it. And if you're correct, I love breaking new news that people don't know. So, but as of this moment, I haven't seen any evidence of it. If it is an international, here's the thing: even if there were elements of it internationally, it would have to be an organization. It would have to have funding. It would have to have bank accounts. It would have to have signatories of some kind. Otherwise, the declaration is meaningless, because those are the things that declaration targets. And it has to be an international organization. To the best of my knowledge, Antifa is not an organization any more than the original Tea Party was. There eventually became like the Tea Party caucus. This, again, you can see the man's helmet. He's wearing a Red Cross helmet. He was in the middle of administering aid to an injured person, and he gets taken down. It looks like he may have actually been hit with a rubber bullet because he was down on the ground somehow beforehand. He identifies himself repeatedly as a medic. One of the things we've reported is medical tents have been overrun by police in the process of doing triage. Nurses, there's an interview with a nurse. We have that on our Discord. There's an interview with a nurse who, this is a horse, he was horse-napped. This was a police horse that one of the protesters snagged.
I stole it from the police. I stole the police horse. Fuck it.
Police reported.
The only reason we're here is to make sure that you got a voice. That's it. There we go. Don't think for a second that he represents who these cops are from all over the county and around this nation. We go out there to help people, not do that nonsense.
There we go.
I just want to tell you, where's my man? Right there. Where's the gentleman?
I think he took off.
Okay, yeah, my man.
He took off.
Pastor Hawkins, I'm just going to tell you, we want to be with y'all for real. So I took my helmet off and laid the batons down. I want to make this a parade, not a protest. You got little ones here, you got dogs, so what's up? So listen, I'm just telling you, these cops love you. That cop over there hugs people, so you tell us what you need to do.
Walk with us. 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 Walk with us.
Let's walk. Let's walk.
walk with us. They ain't gonna walk with us. They gonna walk with us. They're not gonna walk with us.
All right. What we're hearing now is okay. Well, there's been a number of looters who've been fighting each other for merchandise. Ostensibly, that was one of the images we showed of a man who appears to have been killed by a mob. It was originally that he had been defending his home, was the story, but further review of the video appears to show that he had actually been, or sorry, defending his business. Appears to show that he was attacking protesters. We also saw yesterday a man come out with a compound bow and broadheads. Broadhead arrows are particularly dangerous. They are used for hunting. So field tips are the arrows that most people are sort of associate with bows. Field tips are very dangerous too. Field tips can actually penetrate a bulletproof vest. The reason is a bulletproof vest is designed to take a reasonably flat bullet. The bullet hits it, the bullet starts to expand, and the fibers, the Kevlar fibers, become actually harder than steel, really. They just expand right over the thing and they stop the bullet. But a field tip does not expand in that way. So a field tip will actually go right through a bulletproof vest. So police officers actually learned that somebody armed with a bow and arrow can be far more dangerous than somebody armed with a gun, because a bulletproof vest will stop the bullets from the gun. It won't stop an arrow with a field tip. But this man was armed with what are called broadheads, and they are a blade head that's varies in length, but usually about 3/4 of an inch long. And he was armed with them, and he was shooting people, and somebody ran up to him and tried to stop him, and he shot at someone close range. All right, so it looks like the situation in Washington, D.C. is getting... okay, it looks like there is some rioting in Boston now. The situation in D.C., okay, and we have a number of other cars just running over people. The police are trying to clear Washington, D.C. The curfew began, I believe, 90 minutes ago in D.C., and they have been unable to clear it. What we know is a number of Secret Service men, we're hearing 50, have been injured in defense of the area, particularly Lafayette Square, around the White House, and they are now calling in DEA agents and U.S. Marshals to assist in the local law enforcement. They have shut down the lights at the White House, presumably in order to make it harder to find, which, believe it or not, at night it does make it harder to find. So I think, again, and there's been a lot of people in some cases saying, hey, yay, good. I'd like to point this out. If you are a police officer right now in the United States, if you are a good police officer, if you are supportive of your community, which I think many police officers are, you've got a very serious problem, because you know that there is a cancer in many departments across this country. But you also know that your job is to defend innocent civilians, and there are people who are getting hurt. So what do? I do not envy anybody in any position on a police force today. I think the Secret Service, their principal job is to defend the President of the United States. And while I absolutely loathe our President of the United States, he is a man and he is the office. And that office and the man holding it needs to be defended. And I don't think there's any real question of that. So at this point, no, I don't think it's good that Secret Service agents are being injured. And my concern is, because they will defend the President of the United States at all costs. It came very close. When we were watching this Friday, they breached the outer mobile gates of the, not the mobile, the temporary gates, which have been reinforced, but nonetheless were still temporary, the blockade around the White House. If they had breached the main gate and gotten onto the lawn, they probably would have been fired on by professional
this right here,
special forces
this
snipers.
They put them there on purpose,
Y'all know where
bro.
we at.
They gonna set them hoes right up on the route.
Y'all know what building this is
Come
right
on
here.
now.
I ain't even
And
know what name it is.
Hey, where do them bricks go to?
they would have been fired on by Special Forces snipers. And I think the entire world waking up to news stories of American bodies dead on the White House lawn it would be rather shocking. So, yeah, Sean Carroll in time, that's how you do it, that one sheriff. That wasn't just one sheriff, there was actually a number of police officers. There are police officers, you will see them coming up momentarily, who have been kneeling with protesters, who have been marching with protesters. I am curious to know what happens if that suddenly becomes a big enough thing where police departments find themselves understaffed. But it is heartwarming to see it. And the police officers, I think, need to remember that they serve these communities. And so if the communities are upset, these are the communities you serve. And standing with them, especially when they are not committing acts of violence, I think in some ways is the calling of the police officer. But this is not an easy time for anyone. You're going to see, I think, a few more. And I'll try to bring the volume back. I haven't always stayed on it with the volume. We're watching what happens in the White House, because my hope is that they've moved the President of the United States. That gives everybody some more breathing room. There was a story. I've known a number of people. I've known a few members of Congress. I've known people who've worked for Congress. And there was an insider story that was passing around in the halls of Congress around the time of Bill Clinton, right after Monica Lewinsky, the whole thing had come out, and Hillary had defended her husband, and then only to find out that Bill Clinton was guilty and had had an affair with Monica Lewinsky. And his wife Hillary slaps him in, I think it was the China room. Slaps him once across the face. She goes to slap him again, and a Secret Service agent grabs her and says, "You cannot hit the President of the United States." Think about that for a second. A Secret Serviceman grabs the First Lady and says, "You may not hit the President of the United States." Right in the middle of a domestic squabble. They're serious. And if the President of the United States says, "I will not evacuate," and they hit a code red again, they will pick him up and they will carry him. That's how serious they are. And to tell you the truth, I believe in that role so much that I also do believe, in fact, that the status of all Secret Service agents should be privileged. If a Secret Service agent overhears the President of the United States talking about how he murdered 16 hookers, in a back alley 3 nights ago, I don't think he can be compelled to tell anyone. In fact, I think it is illegal for him to tell anyone. And the reason is because nobody will want their Secret Service protection around if that protection can ever betray any secrets you've got. So, and people have secrets. They have private lives. The president's entitled to a private life, but he has to be secured. So the president's bodyguards cannot be compelled to testify against the president, I think. And in fact, if they do testify against the president, anything they say should be inadmissible. The people who do that have sworn to take a bullet. In fact, there are members of the Secret Service. There is in every Secret Service detail, there is a man whose job it is to stand between the president and the bullet. That's his job. There are other people whose job it is to shoot the guy who's trying to get the bullet. But there's a guy whose job it is to stand between the president and the bullet. That's his job. He gets paid to do that. But to tell you the truth, I think there should be a guy whose job it is to do that. That's dedication. That is a person who loves this country. No, it's not a good thing that Secret Service agents are getting hurt or killed or thrown, having that brick. That was the other one when one had a brick thrown at his head. And by the way, police officers too, for the most part, most police officers love their community. There are some who join it because they're violent people. Let's not play games. Let's not play games, and let's not be children, and let's not pretend that there aren't people. Let's not pretend that when we were in elementary school, not elementary school, but middle school, high school, that we didn't see people who were kind of bullies, who enjoyed pushing people around, and then who said, hey, I'm going to be a cop because I've seen it. We've all seen it. There are people who choose to be cops because they're fucking assholes and they think that gives them a license to be an asshole, and they operate that way. That's not the majority, certainly. Some choose to be cops simply because they need the money and they figure that's a gig they can do. Just like anything else. There's mediocrity in every field. There are people who take the field, do it just because that's the easiest thing. And then there are people who do it because they love it. And we've met people of all those spectrums. But this isn't easy. What's happening in the United States today isn't easy on anyone on all sides. And somebody else had said this earlier too. They said, why would the police officers be encouraging violence? I don't believe they would. I haven't seen a credible theory as to why they would. There are a few who I think would, actually. I think there are a few who say, you know what? You're going to protest in my city? You're going to protest while I'm on duty? Oh, I can't wait till I get you. There are some. Oh, of course there are. But that's not the majority. And I think most people don't like those kinds of cops because what's that? The definition of a hero is somebody who gets other people killed. No, I don't think that's the majority, and it's not certain. So I don't think there's a conspiracy by cops to make this worse. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to excuse myself for a minute. So there is some lively discussion in the live chat. I will be upping the volume on this. I will be gone for just a brief minute, and then we will continue this broadcast there, and we may have some more footage and a few other things to discuss. Meanwhile, we're going to see what's happening in DC, because if it appears now there's an insufficient number of Secret Service agents, and if they're calling in, as it appears to be, if they're calling in the DEA agents and U.S. Marshals, that's not either of their jobs, so they are having a hard time containing.
Currently have my head on the ground,
and so we will see what happens. I will be back in about 2 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, we need $4 right now.
What are they doing? Do you see that? What are they doing?
They're slashing the tires on that guy's car.
What the fuck? They literally just slashed somebody's tires.
They just...
My live stream tuned out. Oh, there it goes. They're slicing those guys' tires.
They literally just sliced somebody's tires. Isn't that... Oh my god.
They just ruined their car.
Man, that's the police.
They ruined that car.
Bruh. You got them bricks, bro. We are protesting. Shit crazy. Some random ass bricks, bro. Ain't no construction. Ain't no construction, bro. Just some random ass bricks sitting here.
I got medical right here.
There's no reason to point a gun. There's no reason to point a gun. It's a car. Jesus Christ.
That bitch better be on safety. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, you. Look. Oh, you motherfucker. I had a fucking cigarette. Yo. Fuck. Motherfucker shoot. Look at that, motherfucker. You fucking shot me, motherfucker. Ah, you motherfucker. Fucking bitch.
Stand up, bro.
I'm fucking out here bleeding. These niggas got me.
Look at the fuck.
Ah, fuck, dude. What the fuck y'all did? You gonna shoot me again, nigga?
And I am back. Thank you for your patience. A few house cleaning items while we are here, and then we're going to sort of do a breakdown or a rundown of where we are so far. We have a number of guests coming up. We have Dr. Richard Carrier coming up to discuss the influence of early Christianity on science. We also have Matt Dillahunty coming up to discuss the importance of debate. Do we still need debates? Should we have debates even? Formal debates? Or what do they accomplish? We have a Patreon hangout tomorrow night, ostensibly at 9 p.m. I think there may be some situation that it may influence that, but we hope that you will consider becoming a Patreon if you enjoy the show, if you enjoy what we do. At a minimum, also, if you could, hit us a like, and subscribe. The numbers actually do mean something, and the more of those we get, the better up we do in the algorithm, and that matters, and it makes it easier for us to do what we do. We have a Discord if you want to come in and chat and hang out and send news our way too. That makes our lives easier. We have a lot of volunteers. We have a lot of mods. We have people who help us with the news. We have hosts, co-hosts, producers. It takes a lot of effort, so if you do appreciate it, we hope you'll consider supporting, either becoming a member, which you can do through, and we have a couple members in the live chat right now, so you can become a member, and we sincerely appreciate that. Or you can also become a patron. Both have access to the Patreon hangouts. You can sit, you can chat with us. You can, and we like to talk about, there are a lot of ideas for shows that people give us. We're going to have on, I think, Dr. Cy Gart in the coming weeks also to discuss GMOs. We've done a lot of shows on, we cover culture and politics and science, but we also, of course, do the breaking news, and that requires a tremendous amount of dedication. I am the one that's the most obvious face of that, but we have a lot of people involved. So I would like to thank all of our mods. I would like to thank the people who have been putting the news in the Discord and who have been keeping up the discussions in the Discord, and I go through everything that gets posted there. So I had a question earlier, did you see it? I rarely comment. I go through all of it. And it's very helpful in understanding what's going on, and we try to parse it, and there's a lot of people involved in that process. So if you support us, the Patreon hangout the Patreon is a great way to do it, and we have all sorts of interesting Patreon rewards. There's a link to that. Or, you know what? Like and subscribe. So we've got 40 people watching, so if all of you hit that like button now, that's a big plus, and then and we do appreciate it. We got a couple questions that I think are good questions, and we will get into it, and then we'll do a rundown, and then we're going to see where we are. I do think somebody had talked about, I think Tony Designs, because he had been mentioning earlier about the president, and I think he was speaking to someone else. So on the question of would the president, because the president is perfectly safe. Because there's a bunker down there, and once they seal that, nobody's getting in. But the problem is if protesters breach the wrought iron gates in front of the White House, which are actually reasonably easy to breach. College kids do it every year. There's like between 4 and 8 college kids every year. That's part of their hazing ritual. It's like, oh, you go to the White House and see how close you can get to the Oval Office, which is utterly insane. It happens enough that they don't just shoot somebody immediately as soon as they get on the grass. But there are snipers everywhere. And if you get it, they're being scoped. So, and if there's a mob that breaches that gate, they will open fire on that mob. They will open fire. And they'll be shooting to kill everybody there. And then as they get close to this, they will try to kill everybody there. So I think it's a phenomenally bad idea for that to happen. That is one of the more defended buildings in the United States. It's actually not the most defended building in the United States, but it's one of the more defended buildings in the United States. Do I think that the U.S. will fall? No. I'll say this. People are always talking about, do I think we're going to have World War III? Do I think the U.S. will fall? So on and so forth. There have been very few times I've actually been worried about any of those things. The reason is, there's a lot of reasons. Economics is one of the bigger ones. In general, the economy actually has more to do with what causes a world war or the collapse of a country. It was actually the economy more than anything. Slavery, but how the economy was being influenced into slavery. That nobody really cares about states' rights if everybody's making money and if they can do something with that money, if they can spend it. So that's what freedom is really. It's the ability to do what you want with the money you have. If you have loads of money, but you're in jail, if you're Al Capone, the richest man alive, but in jail, the money doesn't do you any good. If you're the freest man alive, but with no money whatsoever, you probably have some problems. So as long as citizens have a good deal of freedom and money, they're usually happy and they don't care about much else. It's when they start to lose one or the other that you have problems. One of the reasons this is happening is the loss of freedom. You know, if you're black in this country, you don't have freedom. You just don't. You have to consider what you're wearing. Am I wearing a hoodie that if I walk into the wrong neighborhood, I'm going to get shot for? It's Trayvon Martin. Am I, the way I'm walking into this convenience store, are they going to think I'm here to rob it? The image that we saw earlier of a residential neighborhood where the people were on the front porch and then they get attacked. I mean, you can see what gets me is you can actually see the flashbang, or not the flashbang, but the flash of the gun as it fires. Those people are black and they had masks on. The reason they had masks on is because you have to be outside. It's COVID. But you know, now it's like, and it was Jack Tapper, I think, yesterday, and we played this video, which he said, if you're a black man, you've got a really serious problem now. If you wear a mask, people could kill you for wearing that mask. If you decide not to wear a mask, people could kill you for not wearing that mask. Both is a crime that's punishable by death in this country by some people somewhere in this country. So you got a problem. Black people are not free in the same sense. They don't have the same economic advantages. They don't have the same freedom from. Okay, this is the clip I'm telling you about. You're going to see the flashbang. So this is being recorded by a number of black residents of this house. They're on their property. They are recording this, and when the police officers spot them, things change.
Go inside now! Get in the house!
Get in.
So it's those lack of freedoms, and I think anybody with any empathy and anybody, we're human beings first. We're human beings first. We are our race, gender, or sex, however you choose to, second. And it's a distant second. It's a distant second. We all feel the same things. We all have the same hopes and dreams. So Martin Luther King Jr. Did say, an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So this affects everybody, and everybody should be outraged. Blacks in this country, universally, don't have the same, and it's universally, even in the most liberal states, it's universal because there's still an institutionalized racism that, and every 4 or 5 years you'll see somebody goes out and does a study, and they send people to go. They'll set up a white guy and a black guy, both with identical resumes, to try out for the same job. One gets called back, the other one doesn't. They apply for loans. They both get the loan, but the black guy gets a much, a higher interest rate. And that has a cumulative effect throughout their entire lives. It's harder to get money. When they get money, they have to pay more to keep it. They have to pay more in interest rates. They have to pay. What's that going to do over time? It's an outrage to everybody. And when a police officer kills an unarmed man who was lying on the ground. All right, end of rant. So I think there was one more question. There are many ships that are harder to sink. Corporations are usually one such ship that's much harder to sink than most people think it is. And any business where people are making money. The U.S. is also a business. And it's not making money the way it used to, but it is still making money. And it also has a lot of debt, which is another reason a lot of countries don't want to see the U.S. go down. Now, what other countries want and what may happen are two different things. As long as we have a lot of debt held by China, China is not interested in us going down. Having said that, what really is going to determine it is is there a way that we can have more parity and equity? In the 60s, the difference between a worker and the CEO in the company in which he worked was the difference in pay was about 30-fold. So the CEO of a business was making about 30 times what his workers was making. CEO, 30 times. Now it's over 3,000 times. In some cases, it's 30,000 times. The CEO making 30,000 times what his workers is making. When you see disparities like that, that's when you start seeing riots. That's when you start seeing people get upset. And that is a number and a disparity that I'm surprised is lost on people. I get really shocked when people say, we want to go back to the 60s and we want to do it by trickle-down economics. You know what the marginal interest rate was in the 60s? The marginal interest rate. That's the interest rate on money that's taxed past the basic tax rate. So the marginal interest rate on over $1 million. Does anyone know what that was? It was 93%. 93% of any money you made over $1 million in the 60s was how much the government took. 93%. And we had an economy where you could have a single income earner and you could put your kids to school and have a house. I agree. I want to go back to that economy. But the way that was done was by taxing it with a 93% marginal tax rate. Now you say you want to go up to a 22% marginal tax rate and you're a socialist. Holy fuckballs. Yep, golden parachutes, $60 million for getting, and there's only so much of that you can. People only, and that's not. We have a tremendous inequality in this country, and we were talking about it on the Discord, in fact, 2 nights ago, and the how and the whys, and when in the past has that done, and what causes true revolution. And I've probably been simplifying it. I think that was an argument that was made a couple nights ago, and I think that's a fair point. But I do think there are some of the elements that are here. But again, we see this all the time. So what you're seeing now is exactly what it looks like before a revolution happens. This is what it looks like before there's a revolution. But we've seen in the last 20 years what you see right before a huge world war. And there hasn't been one. Yeah, what happened with Trump saying that he was going to invade Iran. That's what you see right before a world war, when Pakistan deployed or gave authorization. They gave commanders in the field authorization to deploy, they gave field. Wow, it's been a while. They gave tactical command for field deployments of tactical nuclear devices to the commanders in the field, meaning that if there was a general in the field who said, you know what, I want to drop a tac nuke, poof, he could. Didn't have to ask the president, didn't have to just boom. That was I think that was Pakistan, when Pakistan and India were about to go to war over Kashmir. And people said, well, that's what happens with wars, because if they deploy a nuclear weapon against India, we are required by treaty to defend India. But if we defend India, Russia was required to defend Pakistan. Well, yeah, that's how wars start. But a lot of them stop well before that. Most of them stop before that. So what we're seeing is, that this is how civil civil wars. This is how they start. But I think there's probably still too many people who are making too much money to have a vested interest in that. And Trump at some point is going to realize that if he doesn't find a way to deal with this that doesn't make things worse, businesses are going to stop backing him, and Republicans are going to stop backing him. In fact, already a number of Republicans are saying that he has handled this quite poorly, and that he doesn't want. So I think we'll see where that goes. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take another brief break. I'm going to get a little water, and then I'm going to take a look and see where things are. What we're going to do here is we're going to up the volume, and you can see a little bit more of this video. This will play at full volume. And I will catch up in the live chat, and then I will see if there's been any other news. Right now, there hasn't actually been anything big that I'm aware of. The biggest news, and this is interesting, is the oh dear Lord. Okay. LAPD Union Attorney Marla Brown saying shoot the protesters. I want to confirm that before we. There was a report earlier too that a U.S. District Attorney Barr had his Twitter account suspended, but I actually don't think that was legit. I think that was a fake account because his account appears to still be active. So we're going to double check that claim. But if she really said that, that's because that's pretty shocking that an attorney would say that. LAPD Union Attorney. All right, we'll take a look at that. There are definitely now multiple fires near the White House. Oh dear Lord. Well, yeah, we do have some gallows humor. There was one very clever joke, but nonetheless, I think very inappropriate joke. But I will say that one, the Matt Oswald. Trump has finally figured out how to draw huge crowds for himself in Washington without using Photoshop. Yeah, and without lying about it. Her Twitter account is protected. All right, so that sounds like that may have been her. But you know what? I will look into that. I will look into a few other things. We'll do a rundown of where we stand nationwide. And now again, I don't know. The only two countries where I heard there are now protests, sympathy protests, is the U.S. Embassy in Berlin and in London. So we'll see. I'm going to check all that in a few minutes. The volume is back up. You will start to see video in a few minutes, and I will be gone probably no more than about 2 or 3 minutes. We'll try not to have the U.S. completely descend into chaos in that period of time. I will see you all in a little bit.
This right here?
Yeah, they put them there.
This the setup.
They put them there on purpose,
Y'all know where
bro.
we at.
They gonna set them hoes right up on the route of.
Y'all know what building this is
Come
right
on
here.
now.
I ain't even gonna say what name it is.
Hey, where do them bricks go to? Where do them
This
bricks
is
go
setup.
to? Where do them bricks
We
go
gotta
to?
do better.
Ain't no damn
You
construction.
gotta do better.
Ain't no damn construction around here.
I see.
Ain't no damn construction around here. You just gonna set a pallet of bricks right there. Oh, okay.
Listen, I did jury duty 3 months ago. Y'all don't keep no bricks right there. Do better.
G, the street across the street is on fire, G. The whole 2 trees over there, G. This bitch is finna blow. This motherfucker finna burn down at any moment. Everything.
Bruh, you got them bricks, bruh. We are protesting. Shit crazy. Some random ass bricks, bruh. Ain't no construction. Ain't no construction, bruh. Just some random ass bricks sitting here.
Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck
you! All right, we have some interesting developments here. Let me get the. I do apologize. So another service, another announcement. So it's just number of friends say it's pride that I don't like to shill and say, hey, please join the Patreon and please like and subscribe. But I don't like doing it, and I think, hey, we should just. But no, I will do it because it does help the channel. So if you find this content of value, please do like and subscribe. And now, having gotten that done out of the way, let's begin with a very quick rundown, and then what appears to be some changing. Some news and one or two reasonably tense situations breaking out. So right now, first of all, last night in New York, 40 police vehicles were damaged or destroyed, 33 officers injured, and 340 people arrested. We have tear gas deployed in what now appears to be about 10 different states at a minimum. We have the deployment of National Guard in 15 states and D.C., and we have 40 cities that are under curfew as of this moment. We have footage, which I think we're going to get up in a minute, of a a New York police officer pulling out what appears to be his police-issued weapon. Yeah, he's pulling it out of the holster. So this is a loaded firearm. It is not it's not rubber bullets. It's a loaded firearm which he pulls out of his holster and begins aiming at a crowd. The crowd starts turning and running. He waves it around, and as he waves it, more and more people start running, but it appears he's waving it for 10 or 15 seconds. We do have a George Floyd memorial. There are riot police en route, is what appears to be happening there. And we also have at least one person shot in Lower Manhattan at Spring Street and Crosby. And this appears again to be, and we've discussed this so far that most of the violence has, there's been a lot of violence, and we've shown it, of officers against protesters, but most of the actual injuries appear to be, in most cases, other protesters or random people coming up using swords. We've seen swords now. We've seen crossbows. We've seen knives being deployed against other protesters. And in one case, we saw a woman in a wheelchair. She was outside a store where there was looting going on. She was stabbing the people, and she was offering to help people. She said, do you need a hand? And when they came up, she would stab them. And she had stabbed several people. She was then attacked. She was then cut. She fled and was seen later getting out of the wheelchair and walking just fine from what I saw. So there's a lot of crazy. And then we saw in Detroit a brown Ford, actually, no, sorry, I said that last time too, a brown Bronco pull up, and somebody fired into the crowd, hit and killed a 19-year-old boy. So at this point, the shooting that occurred in New York and Lower Manhattan appears to have been from other protesters. We do have fires near the White House. We have the White House going dark, and DEA agents and U.S. Marshals being called in to assist local law enforcement. We had this discussion, and I mean, again, I don't think anyone's going to get into the White House building, but if they hit that lawn, people are going to be shot and killed. So our hope is, oh dear Lord. Purple rhymes with orange. If you have any photos of that or anything, if you could either DM me or send that. There is a guard house at the White House, and what purple rhymes with orange says is that that guardhouse has been set on fire. That is rather staggering if that's true. Now that's Twitter reports. Twitter reports are 50-50, but because they're so easy to confirm, a lot of reports like that often end up being true. So I think we're going to see if we can confirm that and see if there are any images. But if the guardhouse to the White House has been set on fire, they're going to be back in a code red. I mean, that's pretty serious. So let's see what's happening there. We're going to take a look at. Lord, there is just a lot going on right now.
Currently have my head on the ground.
All right. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So.
What are they doing?
I mean, right now, honestly, what we're seeing right now, the riots aren't hugely bigger than they were yesterday. So we saw a dramatic increase from 4 to about 15 cities where there was rioting, and from about 4 to 10 cities where there was protests to now roughly 40 cities where there are protests. So obviously it's been increasing quite dramatically, but we have not seen a dramatic increase in the violence. We have seen, I mean, we've seen some increase in it. We've seen in particular cars running people over. I'm gonna get this. All right, this New York police officer. We're gonna get this video. I think we have it. So I'm gonna try to get this video into the system here, and if we can get it, we should have that video in about 2 minutes. This would be footage of.
I got medical right here.
Alright, I do believe we can get this footage. This will appear in the secondary. Yeah, I think we can get that. So, what you're about to see is footage of a New York police officer. Yep, we have it. Alright. No, this is not that footage. I don't know what this is. All right, we'll bring this up, and we can show that we appear to be missing the New York officer. All right. All right. Let's. We're going to show this one, and then we're going to. So that'll be in the secondary window.
They lit the guardhouse on fire at the White House, and now the police are deploying tear gas.
We described this officer earlier. He takes out his gun and aims it at a bunch of protesters. We will put that also into the secondary window. I don't know. We appear to be having a
They lit the guardhouse on fire at the White House, and now the police are deploying tear gas.
Nope, we can't get it. Nope. I got it.
They lit the guardhouse on fire at the White House.
Right, well, I say that. I said that a second ago, so let me double check the video. This should be. Yep, it is. Okay, we do have this now. This is footage of from about 20 minutes ago. No, this is from 15 minutes ago. This happened roughly 15 minutes ago, which we're about to see in our profile window, which is just the record. What you're about to see is a New York police officer right outside of Union Square. He appears to pull the gun out of his holster and starts aiming at the crowd. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so let's see this happen in about 20 minutes. Outside the White House. Oh boy, that outside the White House. So that is, I can't tell if that's Lafayette Park. There's a tremendous amount of smoke. There are multiple fires outside the White House. How far outside, I don't know. They killed the lights, the outside lights to the White House. It looks like so I'm going to take, let's get that second file. This would be just outside the White House. So we're going to see if we can get a confirmation on whether or not the guardhouse outside the White House is on fire. What we've heard. Meanwhile, we're going to keep that New York officer one up and bringing up. We're about to have footage from the White House. We're going to put that up in the third window. That's going to call up the chat. About to see in our other profile window White House. This is outside the White House. Again, I don't know how far outside the White House. It looks like it's not the lawn. It's clearly somewhere between Lafayette and White House. So that is coming up now. So, what you're seeing directly below me is a police officer in New York about 20 minutes ago pulling a weapon out of his holster and aiming it at the crowd, and then apparently moving along with the scene in the window just to the right of Prolib is right outside, I don't know, near the White House. There are multiple fires, there's smoke, there is a report that the guardhouse outside the White House is on fire. No confirmation of that yet. They lit the guardhouse on fire at the White House. And now the police are deploying tear gas. Always people are giving me a hard time about that. So it looks like the church across the street from the White House is on fire. That's 22 minutes ago. All right. Apologies. Thank you. Yep. Thank you. All right, so the videos that we are seeing directly below me, what you see is a New York officer at Union Square. He pulls a loaded sidearm out of his holster and begins waving it at the crowd. The crowd immediately disperses, but that is his sidearm, so that will be fully loaded and it will not be rubber bullets. What you see right over our calendar, on the screen directly to the right of Ethan, you will see that is out in front of the White House. We have multiple fires there. We have now a report that the church across the street from the White House is on fire, and another report that the guardhouse in front of the White House is on fire. Yeah, apologies. I had put in all of these videos and did not turn the volume down on them, and with six running. So, all right. If Purple is all right, Purple. Thank you very much for your help. I thank you, everyone who's been. Please disengage. That's go to bed. The world will still be here tomorrow. So, but that's good. Thank you very much for. Yeah. But it's well. this can be too much. I get overloaded sometimes, so take a break. But thank you very much. You've been a tremendous help, and we appreciate everybody who contributes and helps. So thank you. The AFL-CIO appears to be on fire, and there was another organization on fire. I've forgotten which, but it appears that there are multiple federal buildings now that are on fire in D.C. Anything just outside of Lafayette Square appears to be... so they are within 2 blocks of the White House, is what it looks like. The Park Police and the Secret Service and the National Guard have a defensive perimeter around Lafayette Square. They have called in, I mean, again, it looks like they're overloaded if they're calling in the DEA. It's just not what the DEA does. So we're starting to get... All right. Trump is not saying much on Twitter, which is unusual for him. St. John's Church, which was opened in 1816 and has been attended by every president since James Madison, was also set ablaze, but it appears like it has been put out. So we're looking at this point for confirmation. What we've heard is that the guardhouse outside now, so what we now believe we can confirm is that 2 blocks from the White House there are multiple fires. There is a perimeter around the White House. It looks like that perimeter has not been breached. I don't even know if it's been tested in any meaningful way. It would be hard to imagine that without breaching that, you could get the guardhouse on fire. If it's the presidential guardhouse, it would be the guardhouse that is, right up at the gate is what was the impression that I had. And there's no way you can get to that from 2 blocks away. So we're going to see if we can figure out what's going on. It is clear there are multiple fires. Let's see, damage to the Confederate staff. Yep. All right, so let's see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get organized some of the information that we have coming in here and then see if we can figure out, again, for those of you who are interested, Union Square on the bottom. We'll be disabling that one in a second. But Union Square down at the bottom, that is an image of a police officer pulling out his sidearm and aiming it at the... Appears to be a number of riot police headed towards the George Floyd Memorial. A senior official... We have what appears to be 50 Secret Service officers injured, rioters throwing bottles and Molotov cocktails in the vicinity of the White House, and now a number of marshals and DEA agents being brought in to assist the Secret Service, which is a good plan. I'm thrilled that they're doing it, but that suggests to me that they have reached the capacity of what they can handle. So, and the number of bricks, we've shown now several videos. You can see in the middle window there, that's a horse that's been horse-napped. Tony Designs has heard that joke 6 times now, and he's sitting there going like, really? But, and there's a lot of videos of sorry, we've had a system failure here. Hold on one second. I think we're okay, but hopefully the show doesn't go down. All right. We're good. Sorry, we just had one system go down, but everything appears to be functioning. So as long as we're still broadcasting, that's all I care about. All right. Perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking down some of these videos just so that we don't have too much going on at once. All right. And Sean Carroll, you are going to be bailing out. Yeah, I understand. Thank you very much for joining us. And like I said, I think we're going to. I mean, I'd like to. I'd like to bail too, but we're going to wait to see what's happening in D.C. I think that's the biggest thing I'm most concerned about now. The AFL-CIO is on fire. There are definitely riots in D.C. It's not just protesters. There's riots, and there's a lot going on in D.C. They've deployed the National Guard, but I don't know how or where they're deployed, and there does appear to be a component of the National Guard around the White House, but it appears like, again, they've had to call in marshals and the DEA. This is not part of the DEA's regular duties, so that suggests to me that they're coming into it to sort of fall back. There are protesters gathering outside of City Hall in San Francisco now. And another 2 officers appear to have been fired on another excessive force, so that would be the 3rd excessive force that we have today. We'll see if we can get you that footage, if that's the one. Okay. All right, I'd like to try to get that Atlanta one if we can. It looks like there was Oklahoma City. People were violating curfew. The protests became violent, but it looks like that appears to be under control. National Guard is active in still 15 states. 5,000 deployed in Minnesota now. 2,000 deployed in D.C. It was 200. Okay. It was. Okay, no, okay. So we don't know how many in D.C., but it looks like they may be up to 2,000 now in D.C. And we'll see. D.C. is getting out of control. There are fires now within 2 blocks of the. It looks like another. Okay, that's another police precinct. I don't know which precinct that is, but there is another police precinct now that appears to be on fire. Maybe New York. I don't know. All right, we're gonna look into that. So right now, I think where it stands, the biggest hotspots are New York, D.C., and possibly San Francisco. Thank you, Tony. Like I said, I'll take this moment. If you're interested, our Discord, we keep information. We're always doing. The Discord's always day or night. People are on the Discord. They're chatting, and we also do put breaking news on the Discord. We talk about future guests. There's all sorts of discussions, video and voice chat, and you can share news or see what we're cooking up and working on. But okay, I believe that's the footage we've showed. Found. Yeah, I meant the gatehouse. So if it's the guardhouse is the gatehouse. If the gatehouse is on fire, that's huge. So we have CBS appears to be reporting that the gatehouse on White House property, that would be well within any perimeter I can imagine. So what we will do, I'm assuming that's the appointment gate. Okay, we're going to have to, that's pretty, now this is footage, I think that's the footage I was showing earlier. Yeah. Oh, that can't be the gatehouse. All right, this will take a minute. I do see, okay, there are clearly multiple fires. This is, I think, the footage we were showing earlier. I just don't know if CBS is saying that. Okay, we're going to take a look and see what CBS News is saying right now. Okay, CBS News is reporting that the Enron traders were caught on tape. I think that may be the wrong story. I'm not kidding. That's literally what just came up. All right, we've seen more, but I don't know. So Los Angeles, Southern California, Dallas, New York. The Governor Walz of Minnesota is currently giving a press conference. So we'll see. I don't have, we have footage. It's the same footage. I believe it's the same footage. I'm going to put that footage back up. This should be, let me just make sure this is the right one. I think this is, there we go. So that is footage just outside the White House. One report is that that's 2 blocks away. That is no more than 2 blocks away. You can see multiple fires, but there's one fire that's interesting is, you'll see it in about a second. Or you'll see it back again when the camera pans back. So when this restarts, there you go, right there. That's a small building, and that does look like it could be the gatehouse. But the problem is, if that was the gatehouse, which you'd see is the White House to the right, and I don't see that. No, so that cannot be the gatehouse. So. Okay, Fox News is now saying that the gatehouse for the White House gatehouse is on fire. That is the White House property. So we will bring up a map. Thank you, Tony. We will bring up a map, but at this point, it appears both CBS and Fox are saying that the gatehouse to the White House is on fire. We will put up a map here of what it is we are looking at. That is staggering. Now, last report that we saw, there was a line of Secret Service and police that were, yeah. Yes, which, yeah. There are 4. I'm gonna. This is quite. If this is any one of the ones I'm thinking, but what we're gonna do here is. We're going to put up a map of this area, and hopefully I just realized the volume is still. This is a map of the White House. Now, that may be, I can probably make that larger if people need. But there are 4 gatehouses. And what I'm going to do, actually, I don't know if you can see my mouse. You probably cannot on this one. But the 4 gatehouses, really at the 4 corners of, if you see the White House, there are 2 yellow buildings. The Executive Eisenhower office building is on the left. It actually looks, a lot of people sometimes mistake that for the White House when they see it. But that's the one on the left. The one in the middle is the White House. You can see there's just sort of a central building and then a west wing and an east wing. At each of the 4 corners around that White House, you can see a circle down at the below it and a semicircle above it. There is a gate at each of those 4. So there are 4 gatehouses. If either one of those is on fire, then that is on White House property that there is fire now. The gatehouse that most people think of when they think of the White House is the one on the upper left. It is the Northwest Gatehouse. Anybody coming in has to go through that gatehouse. That's where they stop guests coming in. That's the largest one. That's the most important one. And normally when you think of the gatehouse, that's the one you think of because that is the entrance to the gate. There are 3 other guard houses, but That's the one that's most often thought of and where people tend to come through and pulls up right in front of the White House. If that's the one that's on fire, that is really quite astonishing. Dr. Zayas, yes, those are those are fires. I don't know if they're cars burning, but there are fires. There are multiple fires at and around Lafayette Park within 2 blocks of the White House. The church across from the White House has been set on fire. It's been put out. And now there are multiple news organizations reporting that, quote, either the guardhouse or the gatehouse is on fire. There are 4 gatehouses that they could be referring to. My suspicion is they're referring to the primary one. When you say the gatehouse, that's the one. If you say a gatehouse, it could be any, but if you say the gatehouse, typically that means the primary gatehouse. That's the one on the upper left in the image that you see there. That's the biggest one. That's the most important one. And if that is on fire, which that one's the one that's accessible from Pennsylvania Avenue, one of the 2 accessible from Pennsylvania Avenue. If that's the one that's on fire, ladies and gentlemen, this is a day that goes down in history. It's not the Canadians setting it on fire this time, believe it or not. That's a joke at Trump's expense. It needed to be made. But that means there is, it's White House property. It's a part of the White House. So it's not part of the main building. But at now 1:30, I think we have 2 news organizations, CBS and Fox News, both saying that we were the first. Yeah, we have actually, and this is the one thing about In Time that is interesting is because we're a small organization. We have a lot of people helping us. We have been the first to say something. It's always a little interesting when that happens, and that's happened a number of times. So, and it's happened with international incidents too. That happened with the Iran bombing of the Iraqi Green Zone. But yeah, there's been jamming. There's been the jamming of police frequencies. Anonymous published a video saying that they're responsible. They've been jamming police radios on, I think, at least 2 locations now where they've done that. So we're going to see if we can get some pictures of what's going on at the White House. But the ones that you're seeing right now in the on the right-hand side is it's within 2 blocks of the White House. Tear gas has been deployed. We've had multiple fires. And now 2 news organizations, one news organization and Fox News is reporting that the guardhouse is on fire. And if they mean the guardhouse, that would be the Northwest Gate guardhouse, and that's historic. That's insane. The last we heard, President Trump was inside the White House. That's a phenomenally stupid move, so I'm inclined to believe it's true. But he would irrefutably, by this point, be in a code red. What that means is he and his immediate family have been moved, would be. I can't say they have been. I don't know for a fact they have been, but they're almost certainly in a code red. That means they've been moved into a bunker. Nothing is going to get into that bunker. And the entire White House would be locked down at this point, and anybody who hits the grass is probably going to be shot and killed. So I think that's what we are looking at this point. We're going to try to follow a couple of other activities going on, but at this point we have multiple fires near the White House, and what appears to be a fire on the White House grounds, which would be the guardhouse, and a fire on the church across from that. This is, ladies and gentlemen, it's already been rather historic. 40 cities in the U.S. now under curfew. I don't think there's been anything like that really since 9/11. And before 9/11 hasn't been since maybe even the Civil War. 40 cities, the National Guard deployed in police actions in 15 states, and now a fire not only fires along Pennsylvania Avenue, there were 2 yesterday, but now it appears the guardhouse to the White House is on fire. The Secret Service does appear to be overwhelmed. I see no evidence of that, but what I do know is there are reports that 50 Secret Service members have been injured and presumably taken off of duty, and the DEA, which is not generally in the defend the president business, and marshals who are U.S. marshals who are also not in that business have been called in to not even to, as I understand it, break up the riots, but to be posted in positions in defense of the White House. So that is where we stand. They are preparing a large number of National Guard. I don't know if they've been deployed yet, but it's getting a little crazy. Yeah, no live rounds have been used yet. We did show that footage of the officer at Union Square, who was certainly threatening to use live rounds. I do think that's true, and I suppose small miracles. All right, all right. So, what we're going to do here now is see if we can find footage of what exactly is going on at the White House. I think this is going to go down in the history books, and my assumption is at 1:30 a.m. this is not done. So, the last time when protesters pushed against the White House, there was a massive pushback. The Secret Service deployed in an extraordinarily offensive position. They deployed multiple gas canisters and just rushed the crowd with riot shields and was able to disperse the crowd. This was Friday. I was actually for this action because while I'm not necessarily for the violent breakup of protesters, in that case I was, because it was that or kill them when they get onto the White House property. At this point, my hope is that they consider doing something similar to that. And again, I mean, when you're threatening things in the general vicinity of the President of the United States, all the rules change. So let's hope that does not progress any further. What I'm going to do, actually, I think I'm going to, and my camera is off. It will be off for a few more minutes, but what I can do, well, no, I can't do that. Never mind. I would like to get some better pictures of the guard house, but I don't think we can get that. So I'm going to be taking just a momentary break, and we will do a rundown. We will try to establish. So the White House is now, I guess, has instructed employees not to come into work on Monday. I also do know that the White House was instructing all employees to hide their credentials until they got to the gate in order to protect the employees, but it looks like now the White House is closed. All right, and thank you, Tony. We'll check the Discord. I will be back momentarily. Thank you. All right, we have a number of interesting things occurring here. So I am in Massachusetts. I usually say I'm outside of Boston because A, it doesn't hurt to not be exact with where I live, but also B, people across the world do recognize Boston. They don't recognize Worcester, which is the second largest city in Massachusetts, and I am actually just outside of Massachusetts. I'm just outside of Worcester, just outside of it. I mean, I can see the line from where I live. I'm not too far from UMass Medical, which is a level 1 trauma center in Massachusetts, and there have been helicopters now going by overhead where I live. I was out with my family earlier. We were visiting a park in Worcester, and we were there. A number of police cars came by, and we heard sirens, and so we left. We weren't able to see anything. I don't know what's going on. So we'll see, but as of this moment, and people may have heard my dog barking earlier, and he's freaking out because there does seem to be some activity that can be heard. It's I can hear. So, well, okay, I'm gonna need to keep an eye on multiple things now, I think. All right, so we're gonna do a rundown, and we're gonna have to figure out how, once again, we're going to have to figure out how we're going to cope with a number of things that appears to be going on at the present moment. So I have returned. I'm bringing up now, we actually do have a second monitor. Well, we got a couple monitors, but I got another thing here because I want to be able to try to track. All right. So what we know so far is that roughly 40, thank you. Okay, that is an image of the town of Springfield trying to set fire to Mr. Burns's house. I don't think that's what we're looking for, but thank you. Okay, we may have footage right now. Thank you. So I'm going to take a look at this footage. So what we have here before I do this is what we know is that 40 cities across the United States are currently in under curfew. The National Guard has been deployed to at least 15 states. Thousands of National Guardsmen in different states. There have been some pretty significant incidents in New York. It looks like they're anticipating maybe some trouble in San Francisco. But the biggie has been Washington, D.C., where the church across from the White House has been set on fire, multiple fires along Pennsylvania Avenue, and we have now footage. We now have, yeah, that's Tremont Street. All right. We now have footage, we believe, of the White House guardhouse our gatehouse being set on fire. We will confirm that if it is, which I believe it is. We will show that. It looks like the crowd has been dispersed. This is what we were talking about earlier, that what I had hoped, and I think would be sort of best case scenario, would be just to have that crowd dispersed immediately, because if it gets any more violent, they will shoot to kill the people of that crowd. So the AFL-CIO building is currently, it appears to be still on fire. The guardhouse appears to no longer be on fire, and it appears like that crowd has been dispersed. If it has, it's unlikely but not impossible that it will reform. So we are going to stay on that. It looks like Boston, which earlier had not had riots, and this is, as I said before, I am outside the only level 1 trauma center in the state of Massachusetts, and it is active. It is quite active. It has a helipad. and that helicopter has been. All right, so we have. I do not have access to. Some of this video appears to have been taken down. So I will try one more time to get it, but we are having difficulties. Let me see. Okay, I have. Okay, I'm looking at footage from the White House. I am looking at the permanent gate structure, the Washington Monument. All the crowds have been dispersed. There are no. Something happened. They moved in very rapidly and hit the crowds outside of Lafayette. There's nobody there. If that, let's see, that is as of less than 10 minutes ago. So it looks like what I'm seeing is the crowds at Lafayette, or where there would be crowds at Lafayette, and they are completely gone. I do not see. But what has happened now is it looks like there's something happening in Boston, so I'm going to... Tony, can you double check the links that you put in the Discord? I'm getting nothing when I try to get them, but I was having this problem earlier. I don't know if they've been taken down. I'm referring to the last two links referring to Boston. If you could please check those for me. And... all right. Let me try another way to access those links. I am not able to access those links, but I mean, so what they're saying is that's Tremont Street. I recognize the bottom one. Okay. All right, we have multiple. Yep, that's actually outside of Boston. That is okay. So Boston, like New York, has a lot of suburbs that people sort of consider Boston, but isn't. That is outside of Boston. That. All right, so what I'm looking at is video of what appears to be police officers maybe breaking windows to a police vehicle, and there is a commentator who is recording it, and he says what we're seeing is they're breaking a window and they're going to blame protesters. The reality is, if it's being videotaped, I don't think that would be the plan, and they're still doing it. All right. So there is definitely violence in Boston. Okay, that's Boston Common. There are fires on Boston Common. Sorry, this is my hometown, and I know this area quite well, and there are fires on Boston Common. That is going to be not too far from, okay. Let me see if I can identify. I'm just trying to identify where on the Common they are. But that is that's the dead center of Boston. So, all right. Thank you, Tony. So, what we have is this. We had a pretty significant protest causing fires within 2 blocks of the White House and what appear to be fires on Pennsylvania Avenue. We have multiple reports, but no footage of the gatehouse. What we believe was the principal gatehouse to the White House being set on fire. We know that the church opposite the White House was set on fire, and the AFL-CIO building was set on fire. So there were multiple fires in Lafayette Square. Police tried several times to disrupt the protesters and failed. As many as 50 Secret Service men have been injured. The White House appeared to call for reinforcements from the DEA, not the DEA, yes, the Drug Enforcement Agency, and from the U.S. Marshal's Office. And in what appears to be, so after the fire was set to the guardhouse, what appears to be a very sudden dispersal of the protesters. They are all gone. I'm not seeing any bodies, which is good, but I am seeing a completely clear area of just between sort of Lafayette Square and Pennsylvania Avenue, where moments ago there were protesters. They appear to be all gone. So it appears like there was a very sudden offensive, which appears to have dispersed it. In general, I'm not an expert, but in general, it's sort of my experience that that sudden a dispersal, they don't come back unless they are organized with some kind of central yeah, it's interesting, but we'll keep at it. Like I said, I mean, right now, in fact, I did have to let my dog out, but he is very agitated right now, and he is agitated because we live just outside UMass Medical Center. UMass Medical Center is the only level 1 trauma center in the state of Massachusetts. It has a helipad. I believe it's the only hospital actually in Massachusetts with a helipad. So if anybody is injured severely, they get taken to UMass Medical, and it's extremely active, and I can tell because there's a lot of helicopter activity overhead. It's possible it's a coincidence, but we are now seeing fires in Boston Common. So and at a minimum, I can confirm that that's accurate because I know the Common well. So let me go check on my dog, who is hopefully still inside the property area, and then when we come back, we will do a rundown and we will see if any there's significance. So that is, and that looks like that's not Kenmore Square. What is that? I know what that is though. Yep, there is definitely rioting inside of Boston, and what people are claiming are sort of shenanigans in sort of like the Dorchester or Roxbury areas just outside of Boston. So we will see. Yes, unfortunately, ProLib was unavailable, and I will say this: everybody who works on In Time, sacrifices a good deal to do this. This is not an easy show to run because we have to be ready when there's breaking news. We have a lot of volunteers, a lot of mods who come in and work hard to do a professional show and environment. ProLib needed some time for his to be with his family, which is good. I've been trying to take more time with my family. Like I said, I was in the middle of Worcester with my family earlier today when the police kind of rolled up on everybody. So we'll see. I do appreciate the concern. As of this moment, I am fine. I think everybody here is fine. We've had a few people who have had to decompress, and we do encourage people to do that. I will take a few minutes. I will make sure that my dog is fine. I will also check and just see what's going on outside our house because there has been activity and unusual noises. So, and we are just outside of Worcester. I don't think there's anything to worry about, but I will check. I will be back in just a moment. Please stay with us, and when we get back, we will cover what we know so far, and we're going to see if we can get any footage of the guardhouse, and then we're going to try to assess where we're going to go from here for the rest of the evening. Thank you very much for joining us. There is a great deal of going on, and within about 2 minutes, I anticipate doing a full rundown. So please stay with us. Thank you. All right, my dog is good. Everybody's good. The helicopter activity overhead appears to have died down, which is always always a good sign. And so what I'm going to do is make one more quick check and see if there's anything new that appears to be happening. They're always every 2 minutes when I check, we appear to be getting something new. We do know now that D.C., New York are considered two of the biggest hotspots. I've seen evidence that they should add Boston to that list, but as of yet, they have not. A number of news sources. So what we believe has happened at this point, there have been a couple of sources that have said that the gatehouse to the White House has been set on fire. That fire is out. But if that is the case, and at this point I think we believe that that is the case. We haven't seen it, but there's enough sources claiming it. I mean, Fox News claimed it, but there are other sources too that have said that that has happened. It looks like ABC was saying that. So if that has happened, that means that basically a White House building, it's a structure on the White House, has been set on fire. The White House itself not, but that's a reasonably significant breach. That's not, no, the president's life isn't in danger, nothing like that, but it's pretty significant. Right now, we are confirming that he is. Thank you. We are confirming that the president appears to be in the bunker, which I assume is just an underground shelter, or what he calls, I guess that's like fantasy land. He's going to be like, all hanging out. Ooh, I'm cool and special now. Okay, I'll try not to. So what I'm going to do is take one more look at the news sources, and once I'm done with that, we will go over what we know. It really has been, unfortunately, a rather extraordinary night. All right. What we have so far. Roughly 40 cities in the U.S. are now under curfew. Many of those cities have seen a violation of that curfew. That includes D.C., New York, Santa Monica. That includes Boston now. That includes a number of, and New York actually was not put under curfew, but we'll discuss that in a second. But 40 cities have been. L.A., San Fran. The National Guard has been deployed to 15 states. The largest deployment that we're aware of has been 2,000 to Minnesota. It looks like another 2,000 have just been deployed to D.C., which started with a deployment of 500. We have riots in a number of cities. In D.C. is where it's gotten the most interesting. In D.C., and that's what you're seeing right now on your screen to the right. Right over our clock, you see the riots in D.C. A number of buildings have been set on fire. There have been a number of fires, purportedly at least one or two cars have been put on fire. The AFL-CIO building has been put on fire. 2 days ago, if you recall, the Treasury was breached and there was damage done inside that. But the most startling news is it appears that the protesters had reached the gates of the White House, which is where they were on Friday. Initial reports were that the Secret Service had built a perimeter of men around the White House, but somehow either that wasn't true or it was breached. Protesters appear to have reached the gates of the White House and set the White House gatehouse on fire. That fire, we believe, has been extinguished, and we believe the entire group of protesters in front of the White House has been dispersed. We don't know how. We don't have. I just saw some footage that purported to be, and I have every reason at this point to believe, was from about 15 or 20 minutes ago, of the entire area in front of the White House completely cleared. You could tell there was a riot there. You could tell there was a lot of debris, but there wasn't any people. So somehow that, and it didn't look like there were any injured people. There was no, so we don't know what's happened, but ostensibly now at this point, I think we're pretty confident that one of the guardhouses was set on fire. So that is White House property set on fire, and a response which appears to have dispersed the crowd. What we will say is just even yesterday alone, where things were a lot better, there were thousands of arrests across this country. But, well, not that may be excessive. At least 1,000 is what this looks like. I'm just doing the math in my head. But in New York alone, 40 police vehicles were damaged, 33 officers injured, and 340 people arrested in New York alone last night. We don't have any idea of what the numbers would be tonight. They did try to arrest a great deal more, but they were having difficulty getting them to the precincts. We have a number of officers who've been dismissed over the last few nights because of excessive force, and on video we've shown some of that. One of the ones that I thought we had, we don't, we'll try to get in a few minutes, is of a black man being pulled out of a car. There was a warrant for his arrest. I think this was in Atlanta. Got pulled out of the car. He puts he's complying. He's got both his hands here. There's one officer talking to him, but the other one backs up to about 10, maybe 15 feet away from him, then runs towards him, jumps up through the air, and jump kicks him in the back. He's just standing like this, and boom, he flies forward. I'm not sure if he hit his car or not, but it looked like he may have. But as he's bouncing off his car, it looks like maybe the other officer thought he was trying to get away. I don't know. But the other officer tackles him. They both grab him. They take his feet out from under him, throw him to the ground. His wife or girlfriend, there's a female in the car. She is recording this. She's screaming. She ended up getting taken into custody. Both of those officers have been fired. But, I mean, again, this happened earlier today. So we have multiple instances of police brutality. We have, by the way, and just as a reminder, and there is, that man was purported, that you're seeing now, has been purported to be killed. There's a very large knife there. Initial reports were that he was defending his business. Later it appeared that perhaps he was. Now this woman is coming out, so there are a couple of females that are coming out here that you see, and they begin to get met with fire. We'll cover that one in a second, but that's sort of where we are. Most of the injuries so far actually appear to be protesters done to each other, or random people coming up with swords, knives, guns, and or compound bows, and firing into the crowds and or running them over. We do have, this video has been labeled explicit, and the reason is there is unfortunately some explicit videos, including of children being injured. It is what it is. We don't want to. And what you have here is this woman has been hit repeatedly to the point where she appears to be unable to walk. People go in and carry her away. You're also going to see EMTs and medics being injured as they are attempting to administer aid to people who are injured. I am going to go back and see if I can view, we had a program running here and it has crashed, so I'm going to try to see if we can view what's been going on specifically at the White House. I'm trying to get any kind of footage of what has happened at the White House and of the guard building on fire, which is what we've been told has happened. Long Beach. Okay, no, that's actually old. Yeah, Long Beach is getting looted. Yeah, we already knew that 4 hours ago. We do have, and I think this is important, Governor Cuomo, who I think has done a spectacular job, and there are governors and presidents who are seen as mediocre until there is a true challenge and they rise to that occasion. I think Cuomo is almost universally considered to be one such governor. And he has said that He has praised the New York police officers who have knelt with protesters and who have also walked with protesters. And he has said, quote, "This is how change begins." The National Guard has now been deployed in Massachusetts. They have arrived in Boston. The Boston police have said that the time for protesting is over. They are in violation of the Boston curfew, and they are demanding that individuals vacate all public areas in Boston immediately. We had footage. I haven't brought up the footage. I may bring that up, of rioting in Boston Common, a number of fires in Boston Common. Boston Common is a reasonably large park, roughly in the center of Boston. It isn't far from the government center in Boston on, wow, I can't believe I can't, it's not Tremont Street. I can't think of the name. At any rate, so we will see what's happening in Boston. Atlantic City has now extended its curfew for an entire week, all the way through June 8th, starting at 7 p.m. Every night. They do have, okay, let's see, an Atlanta student was injured. Well, there's been a few more National Guard deployments. We will see where those are. I still can't get, and 2 Atlanta officers have now been fired for tasing 2 college students. The officers say the college students were armed. It appears as if they were not. It's very hard to see what was happening. Oklahoma City is now trying to enforce their curfew. There's a lot going on. So let's see. All right, we do have, okay, we've got one rather startling image of the White House. It's right in front of the White House. So let me get that up. This is, thank you, Bregwin. Thank you very much for that. That's, wow. Oh, dear Lord. Really? Really? The lights went out at the White House today, symbolic of the Obama prep. Did he really just say it? Is that like right now, or is that, no, that's from, okay. Yeah, I was like, if he's blaming Obama for this, which I really wouldn't put it past him, but that tweet is, that's an older tweet, but that's still pretty. What you're about to see in the center screen is a homeowner on the porch of their home is about to get attacked by gas canisters and paint canisters. You can see them fire. There it is. All right. We don't have, sorry, Ethan. I'm going to put over Ethan's photo. We are going to put the, yeah. So what you're about to see is the White House, just outside of the White House. It looks like, now the White House turned out the lights, the outside lights. They did that because they were concerned about being able to be spotted easily by protesters, and so they were trying to make the White House harder to find. That's from outside the White House. When was that? That was, I don't know when that picture was taken, but that appears to be a fire of some kind. Now the Northwest, I think it's Northwest, yeah, guardhouse, the main guardhouse is actually on the right on this photo. So what we see appears to be a fire of some kind on the left. So again, for those, wow, okay, that's okay. So what we have at this point is a good deal of evidence. A lot of people have said that there is footage of the guardhouse on fire, but it's not being shown by the media because they don't want to inflame things. I'm ambivalent about that kind of argument. but I do get it. So we're going to see where that stands. I'm going to take that down. The images that you're seeing on both images, there's a still image immediately to my left, but you see it on your right. That's the White House, smoke and fire in front of the White House. There were multiple fires within 2 blocks of the White House, and you can see the protesters within 2 blocks of the White House. With that actually looks like a canister deployment, and several fires. The church across from the White House was set on fire, but that was put out, and the AFL-CIO building was also, the offices were put on fire. We don't know the status of that. I assume it's out, and we're going to try to see what else is going on. There's not much of a news day today, I guess.
It's real! Black Lives Matter! Oh shit, they tear gassing! Hey, it's real! I stole it from the police! I stole the police horse, fuck it!
Police reported.
The only reason we're here is to make sure that you got a voice. That's it.
There we go!
Don't think for a second that he represents who these cops are from all over the county and around this nation. We go out there to help people, not do that nonsense.
There we
I
go!
want to tell you, where's my man? Right there. Where's the gentleman?
Oh, I think he took off.
Okay, yeah, my man.
He took off.
Pastor Hawkins, see, I was going to tell you, we want to be with y'all for real. So I took my helmet off and laid the batons down. I want to make this a parade, not a protest. You got little ones here, you got dogs, so what's up? So listen, I'm just telling you, these cops love you. That cop over there hugs people, so you tell us what you need to do.
Walk with us! 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 Walk with us!
Let's walk! Let's walk!
Sheriff Chris Watson, sorry. Go! Genesee County Sheriff. They're gonna walk with us. They're gonna walk with us.
All right. So it does look like we still haven't been able to get, I mean, I haven't seen any pictures of the guardhouse, and I think that's the one, again, I apologize to keep harping on it, but I think that's really rather critical. But what I'm seeing here, it appears to be, so we have images now of Long Beach on fire, buildings in Long Beach, and Long Beach was one of the ones. I have no idea why Long Beach happens to be an issue, but it is. And also, I guess in San Bernardino there are fires, and the National Guard is being deployed there because apparently they're being overrun. Also in Washington State, the National Guard is being deployed. Previously, the National Guard in Washington State, they had said would be capped at 600. The governor has said that he will exceed that cap. 600 will be insufficient. So we have rioting in Boston. Boston has deployed the Boston police and have said, I just dropped into my Boston accent for a second, the Boston police, and they have said that they will be dispersing. State of Virginia has declared a state of emergency, and I think that's a new National Guard deployment, so that would be, I think, 2 more states now that have deployed the National Guard. Okay, so that's that's a new one. So I think we are now up to 16 or 17 states now that have deployed the National Guard. Texas is now declaring a state of disaster. I don't know what that means. Nashville is seeing extended looting now. So that, again, that leaves... All right, so what we're looking at is still at least 40, or no, about 40 cities across the U.S. on curfew being violated in a good number of them. Boston has now joined that list. Boston Police Department has been deployed, and it looks like they've deployed the National Guard as well. State of disaster. FBI has deployed tactical teams to Texas. I don't know yet how or why, and it looks like we have reports that the fires got all the way to the Guard building at the White House. So, bit of a long evening here. I have not kept up with the live chat. I'm going to double check with the live chat. I'm also going to see if, I mean, there's some news media sources that are coming in faster than others. Yeah, we're still seeing DC and New York being considered sort of the big places for violence, but that's not, I mean, that's what's being reported, but that's not what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing something's erupting in Texas, and so we're going to try to figure out what's going on in Texas. We also do know that Derek Chauvin, who was the one who ostensibly killed George Floyd, is now going to be arraigned tomorrow. Washington State has activated the National Guard and exceeded their cap of 600. Quote, "We must not let these illegal and dangerous actions detract from the anger so many feel at the deep injustices laid so ugly and bare by the death of George Floyd." That was Inslee, the Jay Inslee, governor of Washington, Massachusetts, has deployed the National Guard. Not sure what's going on there, but they appear to be taking it quite seriously. Philadelphia, North Carolina, Atlantic City, all now, many of them appear to be getting overwhelmed. The local forces appear to be inadequate for dealing with it. We had a report, a credible report, that as many as 50 Secret Service men were injured in defense of the White House, and that they had to be bolstered by DEA agents and by U.S. Marshals. So it looks like a lot of All right, so we have footage that you've seen, I think, a couple times. You're going to see it coming in. It was in Atlanta. It was police officers pulling people out of cars and breaking their windows, we now have word that these two men have been fired. So we have 2 Atlanta police officers fired as a result of the action that you're going to see coming up on the camera shortly in the center. We have another 2 fired, 2 suspended for an attack on a black man, 2 fired for tasing college students, and then 2 more fired for another activity. I forget what that was. So we have a large number of officers being fired in the last few hours. What you're seeing on the footage, you're seeing footage here, is down at the bottom is a whole bunch of clips from the last 24 hours, and on your right, what you see is some area around Lafayette Park within 2 blocks of the White House. You can see one of the White House barriers on the ground there at the very end of that clip. You can see several fires and what appears to be a small building on fire. That may be the guardhouse, but if it's the guardhouse, you'd expect to see the White House on the. Oh, you know what that is on the right? That's the. That would almost be behind the White House. Then that looks like that's the executive buildings on the right. If that is, then then that might be the southwest guardhouse. Then that could be the southwest guardhouse on fire. If that building that pans for a second, when it pans right over the clock, if that's the executive office buildings, right there. Okay, so that would mean the White House would be on the left, executive office buildings on the right. Nope, that's still going to be the guard tower. Okay, I don't know. A lot's going on. So let's take a look. If you've been watching this footage, this has been some pretty intense stuff. You're going to see some pretty graphic footage in the middle window there, including several children being quite severely injured. This is an officer, or sorry, a member of the press who was about to come under rubber bullet fire. And it is what it is. These are some of the things that have been happening. We got some good footage that I think people should be proud of officers standing with protesters, and we've got some rather disgusting footage. A lot's going on. I think at this point I may try to get the footage of Boston. And we will see. Okay, there's the window. The Blitz, sorry, I just saw your things. Thank you very much for your support, and we appreciate the good wishes. So thank you. Yeah, riots in 40 cities. Thanks, Obama. But thank you. But also, please, make sure you thank the mods and the people in there who've been passing news and who've been keeping the live chat has been very active. It's had some reasonable pushback and dissent, which is always, I think, a good thing, as long as it's well moderated, and it is. Who let the dog out, Nick? Okay, fine. Mr. Westp, you have asked for it. I think everybody needs a break. You're going to get it. It's your fault when Tony gets mad at you for hearing this joke for the umpteenth time. Everyone's going to blame you. The World Health Organization released 4,000 dogs from quarantine yesterday when it was discovered that dogs cannot be carriers of COVID-19. Upon being asked, we have now learned the answer and know that it was in fact WHO that let the dogs out. World Health Organization. Yeah, if you have to explain a joke, never mind. That's what you get. Yes, Tony Designs is going to get a bonus. We will be paying him overtime for this. He will be getting double pay. Yeah, that's okay. Or what can I say? Yeah, it's almost the Rose Garden. It's It's pretty amazing footage. Okay, what you see here, what you're seeing right now is a member of the press. I've forgotten his name. We do have it. Um, yeah, Tony may have told me that joke. I'm famous for stealing the work of other people, especially Tony. Um, yeah. Actually, I think he did tell that joke. He probably did tell. Listen, it's 2:30 in the morning, and okay, fine. Wow, I get no love. I get no love. Okay, fine. So, yeah. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna make another serious attempt. What we have, Atlantic City is um, I don't know why they've extended their. I mean, obviously something's going on there, but I haven't seen any reports of it. But the uh, Atlantic City Mayor Marty Small said today was Atlantic City at its worst, and we let it happen. Atlantic City has had its fair share of embarrassments, but today was one at the very top. He said that about an hour ago. I know that, and there's been riots sort of everywhere, but yeah, Tony. Okay, fine. You tell it better, whatever. I've told it better before. Okay. Tony and I are gonna have a joke off, and we're gonna. Yeah. The problem is in a battle like that, for the most part, all I've got is dad jokes. All right. So I don't know. I find it interesting that we haven't been able to get any other confirmation. I guess we've had ABC and Fox have said, but the ABC provided the map. I don't know. Um, and Fox is we're going to have a poll as to whether or not Fox is a news source. Um, So I'm going to restore the volume on this. What you see here is a truck. This is one of several trucks. We also have footage. It's in the news section if you join our Discord. There's some more graphic footage of a truck that footage of a truck that is driving over protesters, and they get stuck under the wheel. Well, we've opted at present not to show that out. Show that here, but it is on our Discord. The bleeding man that you see was actually hit by multiple rubber bullets. They do pierce the skin in many cases. We also have at least two now, I think, one journalist and one photojournalist that have lost an eye due to getting hit. That is a little girl, I believe she was 8 years old, who got pepper sprayed ostensibly by a police officer. I can't see who did it, but the reports are that was a police officer just walked up and pepper sprayed her. We have seen some pretty egregious acts from police officers here so far. We've seen some courageous ones too, but it's been what was that line somebody said when Donald Trump was running? He used to be a Democrat, and somebody said he was running as a Republican. And I thought he was running as a joke, but okay. Okay, I saw that here. That does not look like that was a police officer. The report was that was a police officer. I don't know if that was a police officer. Yeah, so I'm seeing that now. Thank you, George. So, no, the Texas governor, it appears like he declared a state of disaster explicitly because that frees up more National Guard. I'm curious to see how many he wants or needs. It gives him an extra 1,000 National Guard. It probably also gives him some extra cash. Apparently in Austin and down the state capitol, there are significant protests. There was a curfew as of from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m., but people have been, for the most part, ignoring that. I do have the footage from Boston. I think I may try to get that, but I'm trying to get... Yeah, we're now in at least 16 states plus DC. I think maybe 17 states that have activated the National Guard. 40 cities with curfews, and Greg Abbott is a national disaster all by himself. Yeah, well, he ain't Rick Perry. I don't. Rick Perry was insane. Yeah, you just see an arm and then what was a white bottle. And because it was a white bottle, I'm inclined to think that, I mean, when police officers pepper spray someone, they don't use a white bottle. They've got, their own issue, so that looks like that it was not a police officer. The report was it was a police officer. I don't think it was. Okay, so there's a request from the live chat to quit highlighting these morons. He's the president of the United States. I have to, I mean, he's behind. He's in the building, so I have. Oh, you meant the Okay.
Get your fucking knee off his neck! He has his knee on his neck! Get your fucking knee off his neck! Get your fucking knee off his neck! Fence line! Fence line! Get your fucking knee off his neck! You push out! Get the fuck off him! Get your fucking knee off him! Leaving!
have no idea what they're doing. You guys have no idea what you're doing. These police have no idea what they're doing. You guys have never done this before. You have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea what you're doing.
So what we have, I don't know about Harrisburg, Virginia, but Los Angeles so Los Angeles is looks like either preparing to or has declared a state of emergency. They have requested additional National Guard. And there now appears to be at least one officer-involved shooting in Los Angeles as of 7 minutes ago. There also appears to be more attacks on medical officers There's now at least one in Birmingham. We have a few more that you can see the footage of on the video. I mean, the truth is we've been focusing on some of the bigger ones, and I've been focusing on the White House because I do think that's been the biggest one. Now that appears to be Long Beach is okay. In Long Beach now we have more fires in Long Beach. The destruction in Long Beach is now described as widespread. I've seen at least 3 or 4 different images in Long Beach, so I don't know why Long Beach is such a big issue, but it certainly, Long Beach appears to be at this point another hot spot. So I'm gonna double check. Long Beach, Los Angeles, and Boston appear to be the sort of emerging difficulties, although it looks like Long Beach has been a problem for most of the night. We've just been off of it. Multiple fires in Los Angeles, Miami. Phoenix, Arizona is now reporting, and police in Houston have arrested. Okay, no, okay, nope. Okay, Georgia has now deployed the National Guard as well. Nope, I'm sorry, that's from, I'm reading that from the wrong time. My apologies, although Georgia I think is on the list, but that's not a new deployment. That's an old deployment. It's the National Guard's been deployed more than a few times. So let's just see. Some of these. All right, I'm going to see if I can. Okay, no. So I think right now the biggest hotspot appears to be Long Beach. The rioting in D.C. appears to be completely halted in what I have to believe was an extraordinarily aggressive move by, after the loss of what appears to be 50 or so Secret Servicemen who were injured. The DEA contributed officers, as did the U.S. Marshal Service, and I assume the Capitol Police were involved, and in some kind of counteroffensive that broke up the protests that appear to have been right at the White House, including, you can see photos from in front of the White House, and a couple of reports of the guard tower, or the gate guardhouse set on fire. But honestly, other than, like I said, we've had 2 other states at the beginning of this, or earlier tonight when we started, there were 15 states that had National Guard deployments, and it appears at least now 2 more states have added to it. Boston has deployed, and it looks like Washington State has. Right now, the biggest, the most difficult situation right now appears to be Long Beach, California, where there are multiple fires and things are quite out of control there, although Los Angeles is now requesting help. So is Dallas. Texas has declared a disaster area. The Texas governor has declared a state of disaster, ostensibly to get at least another 1,000. Oh, I want to interrupt you. If you see right now the people being pulled out of the car, there were 2 officers involved in that. Both at this point have been fired. They were Atlanta police officers. San Bernardino is also experiencing fires, and the National Guard has been deployed. And a report, at least, I don't know, it's not confirmed yet, that the police have been overrun in San Bernardino. I don't know the status of that. The only one I know is Long Beach, and they are definitely experiencing some difficulties. We will get some footage from Long Beach in just a minute. Although, honestly, all this footage is starting to look very much alike, so I don't know that anyone's going to be able to see the Long Beach footage. And and some good news, Jane Fonda's alive. Thank you.
Around this nation, we go out there to help people, not do that nonsense.
There we
I
go.
just want to tell you, where's my man? Right there. Where's the gentleman?
Oh, I think he took off.
Okay, yeah, my man.
He took off.
Pastor Hawkins, I'm just going to tell you, we want to be with y'all for real. So I took my helmet off and laid the batons down. I want to make this a parade, not a protest. You got little ones here, you got dogs, so what's up? So listen, I'm just telling you, these cops love you. That cop over there hugs people, so you tell us what you need to do.
Walk with us! 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 Walk with us!
Let's walk. Let's talk.
Significant updates.
They're gonna walk with us. They're gonna walk with us.
Obviously,
And they're gonna walk with
is a serious concern. And we do have now a state of disaster in Texas. And we have a state of emergency, it looks like, in LA, and multiple deployments there. California is having significant. Long Beach is clearly having serious issues with multiple fires, and these aren't just fires like cars and or dumpsters or anything like that. These are buildings that are being burned down. We have a number of issues with officers and medics being attacked. This is I hate to say it, kind of the same thing that we've been seeing for a little while here, so it's not huge news. Michael Webster just found out a local Target in Clovis, California was looted today. We actually had on, we still haven't managed to get on the guest that we'd wanted who lived right down the block from where all this happened, but oh, and Michael Webster has pledged on Patreon. Thank you very much, Michael, and I do hope you will join us tomorrow for our Patreon hangout. It's supposed to be at 9 p.m. We will see. But thank you. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be distracted. Obviously, a lot's going on. Houston has begun now a mass arrest of protesters. And we have more protests in Boston. So I'm going to start a rundown, and then once we're done with the rundown, we will sort of try to reassess. Yeah, LA police officer involved shooting. Most of the shootings so far have been okay. So we're going to start a rundown, and I'm going to see how much we can cover. I think the first and most important news that we've heard today is that Jane Fonda is alive and well. Good night. Thank you all for joining us. No, I'm just kidding. She's fine, but yeah, I get this tired. I get a little punchy. So, protests have started internationally now. There are protests outside the U.S. Embassy in Germany, and hundreds of people have gathered in London to protest in sympathy with the protesters in the United States, protesting the death of George Floyd. Last night we showed you the Houston Police Department chief walking with protesters. You will see here officers kneeling with protesters, and even in some cases holding signs with protesters. And what is an interesting change, and I think something we've discussed a bit on this show. We'll be discussing in the Discord too. What does it mean? And what position are police officers in, especially good officers who do not like what has been happening, but also have to try to be officers of the peace. In New York, in the last 24 hours, over 40 vehicles were damaged or destroyed, 33 officers have been injured, and over 340 people have been arrested. Tear gas has been deployed now in more states than I can keep up with. Just at the start of this broadcast, which was 3.5 hours ago, we had tear gas being deployed in D.C., New York, Santa Monica, and Long Beach. Long Beach has become a very bad hotspot. There's been a number of buildings set on fire, and what is now being described as widespread destruction in Long Beach, California. We have ostensibly, although this hasn't been confirmed, a state of emergency in Los Angeles, a state of disaster declared in the entire state of Texas, which frees up the National Guard, more National Guard in Texas. Multiple deployments, 15 states, 16, 17 states now have deployed the National Guard. National Guard most recently has been deployed to Boston. And Atlanta has requested more National Guard. Texas has requested more National Guard.
This the setup.
They put them there on purpose,
Y'all know where we
bro.
at.
They gonna set them hoes right up on the route.
Y'all know what building this is right here.
now.
I ain't even gonna say
In
what
a number
name
of places,
it is.
Where do them bricks
the
go to?
police
Where
have
do
been
they
getting
set
far
up?
more brutal
Where do them
We
with
gotta do better.
Ain't no damn
Gotta
the
do
protesters.
better.
We showed footage earlier
around
today
here.
of a
Ain't no
police
damn
officer
construction
outside
around
of
here. You just
Union
gonna set a
Square
pallet of
pulling
bricks right there.
the
Oh, okay.
pistol
Listen,
out of his holster
I
and
did
waving
jury duty 3
loaded
months
gun
ago. Y'all don't keep no
at
bricks right there.
protesters, and protesters
Do better.
fleeing as he did this. He aimed at a few in front of him, then a few on the side. But that aside, we also have footage that you'll be seeing shortly of police officers entering a rural neighborhood, and when they see people just observing from their deck, the officers open fire with rubber pellets and paint canisters.
The street across the street is on fire, G. The whole 2 trees over there, G. This bitch is finna blow. This motherfucker finna burn down at any moment. Everything.
Small parade of police officers going up their street. We have seen officers kicking and beating suspects, sometimes even when cuffed. In several cases, we've heard reports of
Bruh, you got them bricks, bruh. We are protesting. Shit crazy.
Here, we'll cover that again. It's up to see now.
Some random ass bricks, bruh. Ain't no construction.
Significant number of reports. We covered this last night.
Ain't no construction, bruh. Just some random ass bricks in here.
Or I should say slightly prejudiced. It does appear like there is somebody who's been leaving bricks in various places that are you can expect something that happens. Maybe there's a construction company that bricks in the truck since protesters instead of unveiling bricks goes, but this is weird. So there have been bricks that have been deposited in a wide variety of locations that are often suspicious. I apologize, I think the volume was up too high for that. I can start the rundown again if people feel like that wasn't. Yeah, and in Minnesota, it is a violation of police policy to do chokeholds or do any holding of the neck. So that was irrefutably a violation of police in Minnesota. But I am going to continue the rundown. I think there was a volume issue, but I don't think it was sufficient to. That's pretty shocking. Okay. So we've seen several cases of EMTs and medical personnel. This is a journalist who is fired upon. We also saw Ali Vershi and his crew from CNN being engaged and fired upon with tear gas canisters. The canisters just exploding all around. He's in the middle of the street. The officers are almost 100 yards away, and there's nobody in between them, and there's nobody behind him, and you can see the whole street. He's just talking about the street. He's got cameras there. There are lights there. It is clearly press, and all of a sudden, multiple gas canisters start getting deployed around him. A crew from Minneapolis WCCO was arrested while covering the riots, and Mike George's CBS crew came under fire. But they were credentialed and clearly filming live when they were fired upon with rubber bullets. VICE reporter Michael Adams was recorded as he was attacked. You'll see that here. He's just sort of recuperating in some kind of shelter, and police officers come upon him. They throw him to the ground, and then while he's on the ground and while an officer is talking to him, they pepper spray him in the face. Linda Tirano, a photojournalist, lost an eye last night. We reported on that when she got hit by her glasses shattered, and she has now lost that eye. We have seen several truck drivers that have gone through crowds. One of them, who drove through protesters in Minneapolis, he was pulled out of the car and beaten. He had mild injuries, was taken to the hospital, and was arrested while there. We've seen a number of medics being assaulted in some cases by police officers, and police destroying or dismantling emergency triage tents. Let's see. A lot of the bizarre attacks. People. There was one we had yesterday, or I think it maybe was the day before. A man with a compound bow and arrows, what appear to be aluminum arrows with broadhead tips, just began firing into the crowd. Somebody tried to. There's police going into the crowd. Just firing into the crowd. One person tried to rush him and stop him. He fired at that person at close range, and then was eventually overwhelmed by the crowd. Another man walked into a crowd with swords. He was overwhelmed. So was a man who had a knife, and the knife was turned on him, and it is believed he perished. This is that you're seeing right now is Michael Adams, a VICE reporter. He is recording this, and the police are about to take notice of him, and he will be taken to the ground and he will be pepper sprayed. So we learned also that the president, who said that on Friday when the protesters reached the gate, nothing happened and he was fine and he's just stayed about his normal business, was, as it turns out, not completely honest. Code Red had been issued for the building, and he was immediately brought into the bunker, as was his family. That appears to have happened again tonight, as we believe a code red was issued, and the Secret Service locked him down. They shut off all the outside lights to the White House. Fires, which had been set in the AFL-CIO building and in the church opposite of the White House, and several fires up to and along Pennsylvania Avenue and Lafayette Square. It appears culminated with what we understand to be the guardhouse, ostensibly the northwest guardhouse, being set on fire. That fire is out, and the entire group of rioters appear to have been dispersed in what appears to have been some kind of counteroffensive by Secret Service, of federal marshals, DEA, and Capitol Police, which appears to have dispersed the crowd, and at present there appears to be no sign that the crowd is going to return. But if, in fact, any structure on White House property has been set on fire, that will be a first since the Canadians famously set fire to... Sorry, I get my history from the president. Long Beach is right now suffering the worst. It appears as if Long Beach is mostly in control of... Really?
You got them bricks.
Really?
We are protesting. Shit crazy. Some random ass bricks, bro. Ain't no construction.
It looks as if they broke into the Lincoln Park Zoo and let the animals out. I'm sorry, but that's just... Oh my god, that's just the icing on the cake. That appears to be a... is that a hippo? Is that a hippo walking? That is a hippopotamus in a residential neighborhood. I'm gonna get that photo up. What I understand at this point to have happened is someone has released the animals out of Lincoln Park. Is that a giraffe? Okay, we will. Okay, coat's coming off. This is, oh dear lord. When hippos are walking the streets. So Trump said, elect me. What could possibly go? What's the worst that could happen? Now we know. Hippos. Roaming. There's a hippo. It's just... Yeah, that's a giraffe. Is that giraffe going the wrong way down a one-way street? I'm just asking. Can you arrest? Could somebody tell me, call Nate Brody. I want to know. Can you arrest a giraffe for going the wrong way down a one-way street? Somebody get a hold of Brody. Let me know. The Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago has been looted and animals have escaped. We have a reasonably high confidence of this. I'm going to just double check from a major news source before this happens, but this looks like the Lincoln Park Zoo. Animals from the Lincoln Park Zoo have been released, and we have one giraffe going the wrong way down a one-way street and a hippo grazing on someone's lawn. Hippo in every suburb. That was one of his campaign promises. We'll send him your address, Tony, and you can have the hippo. Oh, dear Lord. Okay, so we will get up a picture of what appears to be a hippo, a giraffe, animals taken from the Lincoln Park. Who breaks into a zoo and just starts taking animals? Oh, okay, this is really, I'm sorry, but this is just, in time is calling it, this has gone beyond the pale. I don't know what to do anymore. I am going to just I'm going to double check this before we really start going with this. I'm like 90% sure this is...
Oh shit. Oh my god. Oh my god. Shit. Look at those stupid heads. You came out with a sword.
Okay, there's
And the police are shooting. They're little...
Okay, I'm going to double check. It looks like... I mean, there's definitely, yeah, this looks legit to me, but I want to really double check this one before I start putting images of wild giraffes. It looks legit to me. All right, we'll put this up, but what we're hearing now is that the hippo's real. I've got no doubt that the hippo is real. There's another hippo. Okay, look, I don't know if that's another hippo. I'm not like a forensic hippologist. So we're going to put up some photos of the hippos, and somebody can tell me if, okay. Okay. It's from 2016. I'm glad we double checked that before going. Okay, that was okay. You know what though? That was a nice highlight for the evening. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna go back on that and say that was from 2016. That was, so there's not. I'm half tempted to just to see that just to see the giraffe. That was, yeah, that was like, that's one of those where it's like almost too perfect, and so you just sit there and say, you know what, I'm going to double check that one. So thank you very much for double checking that one before we really started posting that information, because that was almost, that is one of those where it's just like, yeah, I got to be a little okay. So ladies and gentlemen, it looks like there is not a wild hippo grazing on someone's lawn. There could be. Trump's in office. I've seen stranger things at this point, but no, it looks like yeah, it was too perfect. So that's why you got to be a little careful. So, but no, we got it. We didn't. So we double checked that one before going. So perfect. That's why there's a system. So thank you very much. Thank you everyone who was involved on that one. Will the animals from the Lincoln Park Zoo be met by the Ark? I don't know. I'm this is that was I will say this. I needed that break. So that was good. I'm half tempted to put the photos up just so that people can see, like because the giraffe going the wrong way down the street was a great photo, but that was a little suspicious. So I'm glad we got that sorted out. If anyone wants to see that, we'll leave that on the Discord. I'm not going to put it up because it's just not true. So yeah, no, we're not in Jumanji. Okay, so we had an objection, and I'm gonna address this. We've said this before. I'll say it again. We are a news and culture program, and we do a lot of stuff. We cover science, we cover all sorts of stuff, and we cover breaking news. And we do a couple things when we cover breaking news. One thing is we opine on it, and what you're going to get from us is our best rendition of the facts as we know them. And you're going to get, this is a fact, this is a fact, this is a fact, this is a fact. Then we're going to say, this is what we think about it. And we're going to call experts, and sometimes we have experts on standby to come in and discuss those facts with us. People who are professionals. They've been in war zones. They teach at universities. They've been police officers. They've been lawyers. Some of them still are all of those things. And then we bring them in, and then we discuss those facts. And we make very clear the difference between A, the opinions of the host and or guests, B, the opinion of the show in general, and C, the facts. And you can sit there and have an unbiased rendition of the facts, and then someone say, this is what our opinion is of these facts and how we break them down. And I, for one, believe that it helps to have context in news. And there's this yearning for the time when there was no context for news and when news was unbiased. Times like Edward R. Murrow was very biased, but he also gave you the facts. And then he said, this is a news and punditry program. You're going to get some facts. And one of the facts is most of us around here are not fans of the president. Nobody here wants any harm to befall him, and that's not just playing lip service. I think for the most part, most of us here respect the office, and we respect the process. The process in this case has been subverted. There's zero doubt of that, but nonetheless, this is the form of government we have, and this is how things are going. Nonetheless, this is a news and punditry program. Get over it. Moving forward, I do think that since we are not being overrun by Jumanji, and since there are not wild hippos grazing on our lawns, I'm going to start looking at winding this down. It is 3 o'clock. The biggest and worst protest that I think we had to worry about appears to have been completely broken up outside the White House. I really am tempted to just put that hippo up there. That's a hilarious, just a hippo chillaxing. I kind of now wish that had been true. That was just, yeah, hippos do eat people. Hippos are extraordinarily dangerous. They're much more dangerous than crocodiles. Hippos, don't mess with the hippo. And the other thing you'll find is we have very good mods who are actually really tolerant of letting people express dissent, and they want to hear dissent. I want to hear dissent, and then they shut your ass up. Just a warning. All right. So let's see. No hippos. No murder hippos. So murder hornets. Hippos roaming free. I don't want to. Tony will tell you what he thinks is next. I don't. I probably can't say it on air. So I'm going to take one more look at what we have for real news around here. It looks like okay. We reported earlier. According to so we reported this about 2 hours ago. But according to the Minneapolis mayor, the vast majority of people who had been arrested actually had addresses outside the state. And this led to the belief that there were people being flown in some way or another. One of the things that we had said was, okay, you know, that is evidence of well, Jesus, now I forget what we said. They had 45 people arrested for rioting, unlawful assembly, stolen property, or burglary, and 38 had Minnesota addresses. Well, that would be okay. So that would be 6 had out of state. So that would be that. There's one missing. I don't know. Maybe one doesn't have an address. But it looks like they reversed those numbers. So it looks like most of those people actually were in state, which I think is worth knowing. Yes, I've said that repeatedly. I was a big fan of the police officers, and we, in fact, have been covering the Dallas sheriff who joined the protesters and a whole bunch more who have, and the difficulties that they must face and the obvious tension, because I think most officers do want to serve their communities and don't like what's been going on, for the most part, on either side. I think it's very difficult. And that's what we were saying yesterday, too. All right, so the good news is, I mean, as of this moment, the Washington situation appears to be resolved. The hippo and giraffe situation has been resolved. Police reported. I do want to know more about what's going on in Texas. They appear to be taking that very seriously. I'd like to know more about what's going on in Boston. I haven't heard anything about that. But the biggie is Long Beach, California. Long Beach, California has had. All right, we now have another. All right, we're going to put this video up because I think this is the video to end on. This is the video to end on. I took the helmet off and laid the batons down. I want to make this a parade. So we will, in 1 minute, have another video of Portland, Oregon. Now, one of the things that we've been covering is how, and here it is, this is a sheriff who was asked to join the protesters, which he did. And you're going to see more. We have in this set of clips officers who have been taking the knee and taking the knee with protesters. And that leads us to this footage that you're about to see here. And this footage, I do think this is a good. I hope we can end on this. I hope there's no aliens or anything that comes. I mean, I'm not. It's not out of the realm of possibility at this point, I think. But all right, so yeah, this will work just perfectly right there. So let me get. We will have some footage for you momentarily in the window directly below me. That's the primary. All right. So what you're about to see here is in the primary profile box that's directly below me. This is Portland, where protesters asked the cops to take a knee, and the cops did.
Thank you. Thank you.
And as I said earlier, I think we've seen some of the best and some of the worst. We've seen a lot of protesters also putting themselves in front of buildings that are going to be destroyed. We showed some of those. We showed some of those photos. So let's not think that this is all just terrible things. There's a lot of terrible stuff. But there have been also a lot of people who have come to the rescue of people who've been injured. We saw that in clips you're probably going to see again soon. We've seen, and this is a clip right here of police officers holding up a sign, a protest sign, and they are saying, I think that says we stand with, here are more protesters who are taking a knee. So, yeah, I'm actually profoundly concerned about COVID right now. There's not much anybody can do about it. When we covered the breaking of the Michigan dam, 3 dams in Michigan that failed, this was a bit over a week ago. People were crammed into thousands of people into gymnasiums and high schools. And you will see a noticeable spike in COVID as a result of it. You'll see a spike in COVID as a result of this. It's not a primary concern right now. Thank you. All right, so yeah, you're going to see a spike in COVID from this. So what we have here, so I'll say it again. What we have here is Portland officers. These officers were asked to take a knee, and they did. You also just saw in the middle window police officers holding up signs saying we stand with George Floyd, I want to say. Sorry. So you've seen now a bunch of pictures in the middle, officers actually walking with the protesters. We've talked about this, the kind of difficult position that I think a lot of officers are put in, but I'm glad we can end on something like this. I do think COVID's going to be a problem. I think it was a problem with the dam break in Michigan. You had thousands of people being wedged into high schools. You're going to see it's going to be noticeable actually. If people were stuck for days or even a week or more in a high school, you're going to see a change in the COVID numbers. This will cause an increase in COVID. How and why, we may have a scientist on to discuss it. We can get any number of people on to discuss that, and we may, but it's just going to, but again, COVID is probably part of this. I mean, you have a lot of tension as the result of people being locked up and a lot of people not having, a record high unemployment rates of people who've been stuck with their families. Oh, God. I'm thinking of like going up to a church and breaking a stained glass window so I can go to jail. It's just like, just give me a break. I've got 2 girls. I shouldn't make that kind of joke. At any rate, it's going to make matters worse, and I think we'll discuss that. The World Health Organization is going to relook at the numbers and probably trend them up, but for another time. I think this is a good video to end on. Like I said, I appreciate you guys joining us. It's now a little past 3. It's clear. I think when we wake up in the morning, what we're going to see is a lot of damage done to Long Beach. I think we'll get a clearer picture of what happened in DC tonight. The only thing that we seem to really be certain of is that there was some very large protests with a number of fires. The AFL-CIO building had been lit on fire. The church opposite the White House had been set on fire. Multiple fires, and what you can see right above our calendar right there is some of the fires in DC. That's about 2 blocks from the White House, from what we can tell, and you can see the White House. Shortly after the White House had dimmed the lights. I don't know what that bright spot is, but we did get reports that the main gatehouse to the White House had been set on fire. If so, that constitutes the first time since it was not the Canadians, but since the White House was burned down, that there's been actual significant damage to the property. But we'll get a better sense of that tomorrow. LA has now had LA has requested additional support from the National Guard. National Guard now, it appears, has been deployed to 17 states. 40 cities remain under curfew. Boston is the latest city to request additional support from additional support from the National Guard. There is a report from The Nation magazine that the military has been observing at least seven states using military intelligence. If so, this appears like it's a violation of the I think, Tony, it's a Posse Comitatus Act, but if they're using the Insurrection Act, then ostensibly. But so it looks like the U.S. military is engaged in some form of local operations, which is very, very sketchy. We have Texas declaring a state of disaster, ostensibly to get more National Guards. LA, Long Beach, and San Bernardino appear to be having almost catastrophic. LA is not catastrophic. LA is having riots, so is San Bernardino. Catastrophic appears to be Long Beach. We haven't confirmed it, but and it looks like now we have one report. It's not I don't know about the news source, that law enforcement are deliberately targeting journalists. I would find that hard to believe, but having said that, given what we've shown multiple instances here of them apparently being targeted. This man gets hit. He is clearly press. He has the jacket. We had the CNN crew getting arrested, another CNN crew getting multiple tear gas canisters deployed basically on their position, and you couldn't mistake them. So I hope that's not true, but I got to tell you, I can see why people are thinking it. So I think we're gonna re-examine that tomorrow. I think right now, like I said, unless there's anything, or knock on wood, unless there's anything in the next minute or two. Okay, I'll look into that. I think that's. I can see why somebody's making the claim. We've had a lot of. It's just journalists have been fired upon and we showed the footage last night of the man just taking the gun, leveling it right at and then just firing repeatedly with the peppers at and they were standing where they had been told to. So I don't know what's going on. Again, well, let's see what they have to say. So we'll take a look at that. We'll have that for you tomorrow. I think there's going to be a lot going on in the news tomorrow. I hope everybody stays safe. One of the things that I've said, if you want to protest, I think that's fine. I think you can go out and do that, and we've seen the officers protesting. But please stay safe. Please stay away from any violence. There has been collateral damage, a lot of it, and wherever you see any violence of any kind, you're going to see collateral damage. I don't think that helps anybody. I do understand it, but please try to stay safe if you do get involved in any way. We've had people who are fans of In Time who have gone to these protests, and we're just asking that you stay safe. So I think with that, I would like to thank once again our mods. I'd like to thank our newest patron, and thank you, Mr. Westp, for becoming a patron. I hope we will see you tomorrow. We will we have a community page, and we'll sort of update, and we have a Patreon channel for the live chat for the Discord. We'll keep everybody up to date with what's going on with the Patreon tomorrow, because there's been so much breaking news and so much broadcasting and so much that we have to prep for every night. This is a journalist, by the way. This is another journalist who hands over his credentials and still gets pepper sprayed anyway, even though he's on the ground. But yeah, this is why I do see the source of the complaint. Anyways, thank you for the new Patreon. Thank you to the mods. Thank you to both the mods on the Discord and the mods in the live chat. Thank you to everybody who's been helping out with the news. Thank you to the other co-hosts and guests who couldn't make it tonight. We look forward to calmer times, hopefully coming soon. I hope we see some leadership from our president, who comes out and finds a way to find a voice that is positive in all of this, because that is what we need. So let's all hope for that, and we will see you all tomorrow. Good night.